IndyCar is brought to you on Eurosport by Firestone and Valvoline.
Good morning and welcome as you join us live on Eurosport from Surfers Paradise in Queensland, Australia. And we look already now at the grid, second row, Unser and Fittipaldi, so a big improvement from Penske's. On the third row, Teo Fabi and Gilles de Ferran. On the fourth row, Stefan Johansson and Jimmy Vasser. Row 5, Paul Tracy, and don't forget Michael Andretti is on pole in the Lola Ford, Paul Tracy and Maurizio Gugelmin on the 5th row. Row 6, Scott Pruitt on the Firestone tyres alongside Adrian Fernandez. And in the warm-up this morning, as you're watching the grid, I'll tell you that Michael Andretti was the quickest again. He was fastest in practice, fastest in the warm-up, followed surprisingly by Robbie Gordon, who as you see is only on the 8th row of the grid. Robbie Gordon second fastest in this morning's warm-up. Christian Fittipaldi was third quickest this morning, followed by Teo Fabi, and Gilles de Ferran was fifth fastest in the warm-up, followed by Johansson, Emerson Fittipaldi, Rahal Bozell and Villeneuve, only 10th quickest in the warm-up this morning, but on the front row for the race alongside Michael Andretti. So in just 2 weeks, the IndyCar circus has moved from America to Australia, and another street race, two street races in a row to start the year, and this could raise as many questions as it answers. We won't get to the ovals until the third race of the season. City streets, of course, make for the most unpredictable races, and surfers will be no exception. There'll probably be plenty of yellow flags. There have been a lot of shunts in practice. The red flag's been out a few times, and as you can see now, they're making their way around on the parade lap. About 2 minutes now before the start of this, the second round of the IndyCar Championship, live here on Eurosport, or at least as live as you can be at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I know that down there at Penske and Poole they're cooking up breakfast. Spoke to Nick Guzet this week, and apparently he's doing the cooking, so maybe he's not watching at the moment, but I know that I can almost smell it. I wish I was there myself. Remember last year, the weather can play a factor at Surfers Paradise. Last year it rained when Michael Andretti won, and already a problem there for Zampedri. That's Alessandro Zampedri in the Lola Ford, last year's Lola Ford, and that is something every racing driver dreads, not being able to make the start of the race. That really is bad luck on Zampedri. I don't think he's in a difficult position there, no, he's right. Well, I think they're about to start okay without that. They've got a waved yellow there, but it doesn't look too serious. And look at that, you can see the Penskes in the background there, up to the second row of the grid this time after a disastrous start in Miami. And by the way, Ferrari won at Sebring. We've just seen the end of the Sebring 12-hour race. It was won by Fermin Velez in a Ferrari. There's Michael Andretti, the pole sitter. He did a 1:36.7 in qualifying. The man who so nearly won at Miami. He should have won at Miami, but he made a mistake, hit the wall, and a few laps later his suspension collapsed. So Michael Andretti looking for a win here, but so of course is Jacques Villeneuve, the winner of the first round. This could be one hell of a race. The first few laps are going to be very, very exciting. There's Al Jr. and Emerson Fittipaldi taking up the second row there, followed by Teo Fabi and Gilles de Ferran. Many people tipping Gilles de Ferran for a win here. So, about a minute now to go before the start, and this will be a long, tough race. It's a very quick circuit this, although it's a street circuit. It's got some very, very quick sections, a tricky chicane, a very quick chicane, and you can see there that it's almost perfect weather for racing, only a 15% chance of rain, so we should be in for a good, dry, exciting race. Reynard, of course, have 13 cars in the field, so they'll be hoping to have another win here at Surfers. That's Robbie Gordon's car there we're riding in. He's way, way down the grid. He's on the 8th row of the grid. He crashed, if you remember, at Miami, so he'll be looking for a big improvement here. But he was second quickest in this morning's warm-up on an almost identical time to Michael Andretti, as the field start to form up now for the start of round 2 of this year's IndyCar Championship. And you can only see it live here on Eurosport. There's Christian Fittipaldi. behind the forming up map, and there they go to our commentators Guy Hobbs and Scott Goodyear.
Him and past Michael Andretti, and Michael goes deep into the corner in the first turn always, and almost pushed young Villeneuve out, and maybe allowed Alonso Jr. to get on the inside there.
Michael Andretti returning to the Newman Haas team, a team he won a championship before with them. He raced with the Ganassi Target team last year. It looks like Junior makes a move around Jacques Villeneuve, unable to pull it off, and may have even made slight contact with the wall. There you see at least the time after he gets back under power. Villeneuve carrying to 27 this year. Michael Andretti won this race last year on his return to the IndyCars and has been pretty dominant in all practices and qualifying sessions we've had this season. In fact, he has been quickest in 6 of 8 sessions. There's Gil de Ferran, the Brazilian. Oh, and that could be a penalty for that. We heard that if all 4 go off, there's a penalty there.
That's exactly. They said if you've improved your spot, then you can get a penalty, a stop and go. We'll have to see what the kart officials do with that to see if he thinks that maybe he made that pass and didn't allow him to get through the chicane, and that was an improvement in position. They'll give him a stop and go.
Do you think Villeneuve has a problem? It seems everybody's trying to make a move on him right away.
Well, I think that he got a good start there because he ended up staying in the second position, but I saw back when he and Al Jr. were fighting there a little bit before that it cost Al Jr. a couple of spots, and like you said, he might have tagged the wall. Remember, Michael Andretti tagged the wall trying to pass a back marker back in Miami and ended up costing him the race.
Michael Andretti also tagged the wall, but I would say a very heavy tag on the wall last year. Got very lucky, proving the Reynard a very strong car, but got lucky and hit the tire wall and managed to stay out and continue and lead and win that race. Nigel Mansell also tagged the wall, didn't have the same luck.
Exactly. Michael Andretti had the bonus, I think, of having the tire barrier there. So you're mentioning that Villeneuve looked like he might be having a little bit of a problem. It seems like he's falling back, maybe locking up the brakes a little bit here right now and playing a little bit of protection right at this time. So maybe we'll have to watch to see what goes on here.
And the Italian, Teo Fabi, who in fact is running with what is Jacques Villeneuve's previous team owner, running for Jerry Forsyth this year, has got by, and now we see Alonso Jr. in the number 1 car able to get by, and that's Emerson Fittipaldi right behind Villeneuve, and behind Fittipaldi, Brian Herter, I believe, in the number 8, the number 4 entry.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, it looks like he just got the car off balance a little bit, and it's such a very hard thing on a street course because the crown of the road is there to allow the water to run off during the rain type of situations, and right now if you're off track a little bit, you certainly can lock up one wheel front or rear, and it certainly throws the balance of the car off.
Teo Fabi started on the inside of row 3 off to a great start, currently holding down that 3rd position behind Gil de Ferran. And the question is, are we going to see a penalty assessed on Gil de Ferran for running over completely the chicane? And if it is, it'll be a stop and go penalty, basically into the pits, stop him, he can go again. But obviously you lose a lot of time in a lot of places in that situation.
You certainly do. And what's happening right now in the pits is that the kart officials, if they're looking to assess a penalty, will be coming over to the team manager, telling him that's what they're going to do. And there's a bit of debate going on now, a little bit of arguing. The team's obviously wanting to try and get out of the penalty. It's much like you would see in any other sport, but we'll see it. If it's assessed, we'll see him coming in here in the next lap or 2.
I think we have word from the pit lane that in fact he has been assessed a black flag, and there you see the starter giving him the black flag. Next time round, Gil de Ferran will have to come in, stop, go back out, and he'll join the tail end of the field and have his work cut out for him. Here's a guy who's come from Europe, from Formula 3000, almost won the championship there last year. He picked up this drive, and it was unusual for him to get in this Jim Hall car with the American Pennzoil sponsorship. There's a lot of talk about, well, Gil de Ferran, no one's heard of him over here in America, but he's come over, he's been very quick in testing everywhere he's been. Go to Miami, he's on the pole provisionally, gets bumped in the second round of qualifying, only manages about 3 laps before the transmission let him down, and now here he is again, puts on an aggressive move, and he's going to get black flag and sent back to the back. He's got a big learning curve in the IndyCar racing to learn and to abide by here in this series.
Well, it certainly is a learning curve, and also yesterday he was, I believe, second on the, we have, looks like Adrian Fernandez here, caught the tires and has pulled the car into the wall, so that's a shame.
Now this will probably bring out a full course yellow, and if you remember last year, Nigel Mansell was given a black flag penalty. There you see the Fernandez incident, locked it up going through the turn and then just couldn't make the turn, got onto the marbles. Probably too much damage for him to continue. Just to reflect on that Nigel Mansell incident, he was black flagged, a yellow flag came out, and he actually did a stop-and-go penalty under a yellow flag situation, and they let him go with it. And then we were all sitting here going, oh, I think that's wrong. And as it happened, he got away with it at one time, but they're going to be much more careful as Gil de Ferran is going to have to pay his penalty before this caution flag.
Well, he's going to have to do it underneath the green, because essentially after that race last year, the drivers all got together and turned around and said that we have to make sure that we get our penalties underneath the green situation, because it was not correct in what happened with Nigel Mansell. I mean, he took advantage of it, and he very well should have. Great in-car camera shot from Bobby Rahal.
That's just one of the many in-car cameras we have for you today. Michael Andretti also has a couple of cameras. Robbie Gordon, Brian Herter, and Paul Tracy carrying cameras for us, so we can give you great live coverage on ESPN of round 2 of the 1995 PPG IndyCar World Series. Do you think Gil de Ferran, coming new into the season, new into this IndyCar, maybe just being a bit too aggressive in his first couple of races?
Well, I think that he has a lot that he wants to prove over here, and he certainly wants to make himself known in IndyCar racing, get himself established. And I think the Jim Hall team has had a rough couple of years. They've had some good sponsorship with the Pennzoil team. They probably haven't had some good finishes. I think they've only won one race, and you talked about first before, and it was the first race that they went back to motor racing back in 1991 with John Andretti, and they won here in Australia, and that was their first win and their only win so far. They have a lot to prove, not only as a driver but also as a team, and I think that he's doing a great job. But the learning curve, as you're talking about, is going to come on the ovals, and the next race that we go to is Phoenix. It's a 1-mile track. They call it the 1-mile bull ring. A very, very tough track. I think anybody that's gone fast there has crashed at some point in time, because you just step over the line a little bit and the wall sucks you up very quickly. I know I've bounced off the wall there a couple of times myself, but it can also be very gratifying if you get the car working well, and it just, as we've seen with people in the past, you can almost run anywhere on the racetrack, and they look like they've got a good setup there. They've tested well there, and he just has to get the confidence, which I'm sure will come very quickly, and probably be very, very competitive there, I think, at Phoenix.
He's done very well in testing there, I believe, in the off-season. But as you say, a learning curve. A great thing about the IndyCar series, these first 2 races, I think is Junior slowing down? I think Allison Junior has a problem. But the first 2 races of the season run on tight street circuits. We go to a 1-mile oval next week or 2 weeks from now. Then we go to another street circuit. Then we get onto some permanent road circuits after the Indy 500. And I'm sure a lot of these drivers are looking forward to that, where they can really unleash. They've got runoff room. We can make errors and still get back out on the track. As now we're being picked up by the pace car. They have decided to go full course yellow to pick up Adrian Fernandez, number 10, the Gallus entry, with the Tecate Mexican beer sponsorship in Quaker State, running the the Lolas, pardon me, this year. They ran.
As you join us again live from Surfers Paradise, it's Michael Andretti who leads in the Lola Ford, followed by Gilles de Ferran. A fantastic race so far from de Ferran. And then comes Theo Fabi, Al Unser Jr. in the Penske, and then Jacques Villeneuve. And we're under yellow flags at the moment at Surfers. Adrian Fernandez has gone off, and his car is in a dangerous situation. So bunching up now, but behind the pace car you can see it's Michael Andretti leading. He led from pole position, and behind him Gilles de Ferran. A most impressive race so far from Gilles in the Reynard. Very much a blue-eyed boy, Reynard. Gilles de Ferran, come from Formula 3000, missed out so far on Formula 1, but a very impressive IndyCar season so far, and he's right up underneath the back of Michael Andretti now. Theo Fabi in 3rd position. Very good qualifying performance from Fabi, and a good race so far. And then the first of those Penskes, it's Al Unser Jr. and then Jacques Villeneuve. He started from the front row, but down now in 5th position. But of course, a very, very long way to go here at Surfers Paradise. And as you can see, it's fairly bumpy. Just as we saw in Miami, these street circuits tend to be pretty tricky. They get very, very slippery. It's a hot day there. And that quick chicane, that's Adrian Fernandez's car being taken away on the tow truck. The Lola Mercedes of the Mexican, Adrian Fernandez. A very, very short race for the Mexican today. He lost it under braking into the left-hander and went straight on into the tyre wall. The car is not heavily damaged, but that's the end of the race for Fernandez, who was improving enormously at the end of last season and has had a good year so far in IndyCar. So what have we seen since the last race? We've seen a tremendous improvement from the Penskes. Well, they had a disastrous time in Miami. They'd been testing in the as much as they could anyway between the two races, although that is very difficult at this time of the year, moving from America to Australia. But they've made those improvements, and this could be a very interesting battle. We've got a Lola in the lead, a Reynard second, and the first of those Penske's in fourth position. So still following the pace car at the moment, while the tow truck takes Fernandez car away. There was a bit of controversy, by the way, during qualifying with the red flags. Some drivers penalized for continuing under a red flag. That, of course, is the flag they show when everything has to stop. And I think we're going to see the Fernandez instigate. No, it's Gilles de Ferran. Whoops, and that was a penalty for Gilles de Ferran cutting across the chicane there. He just left his braking a little bit too late. The car got away from him, and he quite unintentionally, of course, cut straight across the chicane, which gained him a little bit of time. A lot of tyre warming going on now. You can see there's Theo Fabi, followed by Al Unser Jr., and then Jacques Villeneuve, and then Fittipaldi. They've had 4 or 5 laps now behind the pace car. And one of the problems with this, of course, is that they lose the temperature in the tyres, therefore they lose grip, and therefore once the race gets underway again, the car is more difficult to drive. So they need to keep as much heat in the tyres as possible in these yellow flag periods. So reasonably few incidents so far, especially at the start of a race like this, when the track is very, very crowded. And Michael Andretti had a useful lead, in fact, up until this period. But it's allowed Gilles de Ferran to catch right up and the field to bunch up behind the pace car. See the name Nigel Mansell there. He's the lap record holder here at Surfers Paradise. He was on pole for last year's race. But he, of course, now moving to Formula One, or not, as the case may be. He's certainly not doing the first 2 races for McLaren. That car, his car, will be driven by Mark Blundell. As we look forward now from, whoa, look at the Mercedes in the chicane. You can, bit of a roll there. But that's a very, very quick chicane, that. And one of the trickier parts of the circuit as they come now down through the left-hander, still following the pace car. And this is the result of the Adrian Fernandez incident. And there's Stefan Johansson. Stefan Johansson had a good weekend so far. Very competitive here in last year's Penske Mercedes. And really this could be anybody's race, although Michael Andretti has to be the favourite after his tremendous disappointment in Miami when he had a huge lead, tried to squeeze by somebody too close to the wall, and broke his front suspension. So Michael Andretti wanting to make amends here in Surfers Paradise. Not a good weekend so far for Paul Tracy, by the way, as the pace car peels away and Andretti leads. As we go back now to our American commentators, Guy Hobbs and Scott Goodyear.
Way, but actually before he got to the green flag.
Well, now it's on a restart, so as long as you've seen, or you don't even have to see the green flag, as long as the green flag is waving, you can be told over your radio by your pits that it's green and you can pass anywhere on the race circuit. My only question is whether the green flag was physically waving at that time because the pace car had not physically gone off the racetrack.
There you see the view at the back of Michael Andretti's car. Gilles de Ferran right behind him in the yellow Reynard. Gilles de Ferran using the Mercedes engine, running in the Rookie Championship this year for Jim Hall. Great view out the back of Michael Andretti's car. Is that a little puff of smoke you saw there?
Well, it could just be the bottom of the car touching the road, and when the cars are full of fuel, we've got 40 gallons of methanol on board, and the cars hit the ground, you see a little puff of the wood underneath of the car actually coming up through. And, you know, here's the situation we were talking about before. Michael doing just a great job getting through the chicane here, and this is a new chicane that we we talked about before, is that you have an opportunity to get through the chicane very quickly, but you're going slower than you did last year. Last year you only had a left and a right, and now you have a left, right, and another left following up with that. So I think we're in a situation here where you're trying to slow the cars down. A lot of accidents happened there last year, and Robbie Gordon, if you can recall, did a big accident there last year and was very lucky to walk away.
And of course that's added 1/10 of a mile to the circuit, so the speeds were supposedly to be down, but not at all. In fact, Michael Andretti set a lap record. Now you see Gilda coming in to pay his penalty, and also, as you pointed out, Scott Goodyear, Alonso Jr. made that pass before the green flag was waving. Both of them going to get stop-and-go penalties. Need a clean, good start out of here. Don't stall it. They are revving like mad as they pull out of pit lane.
Look at this. We're going to have Al Jr. actually getting through his stop and go quicker than DeFerran, and so he's now picked up a position, but they've also lost probably about 5 or 6 overall.
I think they pulled out behind Alicio Salazar in the number 7 entry, right in front of Alicio Salazar. So they should be in approximately 15th, 16th position.
And a penalty at this time of the race really hurts you because the pack is still very much close together. It's not like when your race is half over or 3/4 over, the field is spread out. In this situation now, especially after a restart, everybody is very, very close. You go into the pits only for a moment, as we saw here, and you're bound to lose just so many spots.
The other thing too, of course, to be careful, you go in for that stop and go penalty. When you come out of the pits and obviously you floor it, you've got to be careful. 80 miles an hour speed limit in pit lane. Again today being enforced, not a new rule they've had in IndyCar for a couple of years. They'll give you about 5 miles an hour over that limit, but the moment you hit 86 miles per hour, you are definitely coming back in again for another stop and go penalty.
You know, they certainly are. And what the engine manufacturers did last year is they turned around and gave the driver a little toggle switch on the dash, so when he comes into the pits he can actually flick a switch and the car will be limited to a speed of 80 miles an hour or whatever the speed limit is in the pits. And what they do is they generally set it for 83 miles an hour so you can get through the pits as quickly as possible, but it's up to the driver to turn the switch on. If he forgets to turn the switch on, either on the way in or on the way out, you can exceed the speed limit and another stop and go.
And then you're really in trouble. As Michael Andretti continues to lead reasonably healthily at this point over Teo Fabi. Right behind him, young Canadian Jacques Villeneuve. Then we have Brian Herter. Right behind Brian Herter, Paul Tracy, Fittipaldi, Johansson. And then we have Scott Pruitt in the Firestone entry. Firestone coming back to the IndyCar Series after having been out for over 20 years. And they've got over 48 wins, or exactly 48 wins at the Indianapolis 500.
More than Goodyear.
More than Goodyear. And you're going to be racing on Firestones when you come back into the season.
Well, I will be at Indianapolis, so it's a return for Firestone at Indianapolis, and I guess Scott Goodyear will be driving on Firestones, and that's the team who's using Firestones.
It's going to make it interesting for the announcers with Goodyear on Firestone. We pointed out you can't go over 80 miles an hour in the pit lane. Alonso Jr. has been assessed a penalty for going 91 miles per hour on his exit of the pit lane after the stop and go. He's going to have to come back in and have another stop and go penalty.
And that is so frustrating. I can remember in 1993, we were all battling up the front in the top 3 or 4 spots. I left the pits, actually was with Al Jr., got him in the pit lane, left, and ended up being assessed to stop and go for speeding. Came back in. I was so upset over that, and your adrenaline's going. You talked about your heartbeat earlier on. Left the pit lane again and assessed another stop and go for speeding again. So by the end of that day, I was pretty much an unhappy guy.
And it's one of the toughest rules in racing. Here we are racing, and you're given a speed limit. It's just like...
Only in the pits, and I think it's there for safety. Remember, when all the guys are in there working on the cars, you've got about 6 or 7 guys over the wall. The guys are going by at 80 miles an hour. We've seen problems there again at Long Beach. Michael Andretti, I believe it was, with Emerson Fittipaldi, made contact in the pit lane a couple of years ago, and it could have been near disaster. The car could have actually gone up and over the pit wall, back onto the racetrack, or even back into where the crew members were.
Here's Alonso Jr., the defending champion, 8 wins last year, 7 poles. So far, not a good year for him. Now back in for another penalty, and he's got to make sure he keeps it under 80 miles an hour this time. As he pulls out, he's going to go right to the back of the pack and certainly have his work cut out for him. You mentioned it for safety, and I had the opportunity once to work in a pit for the World Sports Cars for John Fitzpatrick Racing in a 6-hour enduro in Italy, and it was one of the most harrowing experiences I've ever had, and certainly not something I would like to do again. Michael Andretti continuing to lead Alonso Jr. now at the back of the pack after that second penalty.
And that is very strange because Al generally doesn't make mistakes like that, number one. Last year, everything went his way in the season. I mean, strange things would go on, he'd always come out in the right end of things. And in this situation here, I mean, 2 quick penalties very quickly, and it's going to hurt his chances for good points today.
And he's never done well here in Australia, actually. As you saw out of the race, Eric Bachelard, who is returning to the IndyCar Series, hoping to put together a whole season. He never even took the green flag. And Adrian Fernandez, the young Mexican driver who made contact with the wall and was the reason we had that 1 caution flag a little bit earlier. There you see Canadian Jacques Villeneuve. In the last 4 IndyCar races, he had 2 first, a 3rd place, and a 7th position. Things are looking really good for him this year. Barry Green, he's racing for that team. It was Green, Forsyth. The team split up, became Barry Green, Jerry Forsyth. Barry Green stuck with Jacques Villeneuve, the Reynard, and there we see Gilles de Ferran go down the inside, making his way up through the slower cars after having his penalty. But the Green and Villeneuve combination turned out to be a great team.
It certainly has, and a lot of people had a lot of questions over the winter time when that team split up. Some of the crew members from the Forsyth Green team last year went with the Forsyth group, and so there was a lot of questions there about what might happen this year. This move here reminds me a lot of Nigel Mansell making that pass on Emerson Fittipaldi for the lead a couple of years ago.
Yeah, if you remember a couple of years ago and last year, in fact, Nigel Mansell just locking them up all the time going into that chicane. And there you see Gilles de Ferran doing the same thing, locking up the fronts, under braking, trying to get the position. Jacques Villeneuve, currently the points leader in the 1995 championship, if you can believe it, after that win 2 weeks ago in Miami, a win that basically was won on pit lane. He didn't overtake Guzman for the lead, but he got in and out of the pits quicker on a regular pit stop.
And I remember reading something last week or 2 when they're talking about how good that pit stop went for the Barry Green team. That team actually does a pit stop contest in their shop twice a week, so they can actually be up to speed come race weekend. So they're actually practicing during the week, much like a driver would like to do with his race car.
Looks like we've got a big problem on the 64, the Buddy Lazier car. I mentioned earlier, Christian Danner normally drives that car. Lazier's in this weekend. It's a 93 Lola, very old car, but running with the Ford Project Indy. Andreas Lieberle is one of the owners. They run with Zach Speed in Formula 1. Here you see a replay of him, Buddy Lazier, having those problems.
Yeah, just entering into the chicane there, it looks like the left rear wheel caught the curbing or maybe even the wall and put the car a little bit askew, and he didn't have control of it for the second half of the chicane.
And how about this guy, Jimmy Vasser, mid-off-season, looked like he was done, didn't look like he was going to have a ride. Suddenly they announced he's going to be racing for the Ganassi team, and obviously having a great day here today. He's currently in 8th position, had a good qualifying run, looked quick in Miami, not as good a result as he would have liked. In fact, at Miami he finished 8th, but looking good here in Australia.
Very much so, and it looked like they just flashed up on the screen that his best finish was 3rd in Australia before, so this track probably agrees with him very well. And I think he would like to come away with some good points here and good finish, and you can recall that maybe even last year he had a good run going even at Phoenix. So he likes that track. That's the next track on this series that we go to, so he'd be looking to collect some points here to get ready for Indianapolis too.
And I said he was 8th. He's actually currently 4th, right behind Villeneuve. And it looks to me like Fabi is making up a little ground on Michael Andretti. That is Paul Tracy, you see, right behind Jimmy Vasser.
Yes, and Paul's obviously after trying to get a good run here too. He has had some problems in Miami, but he qualified 9th here. Generally not where Paul qualifies. He's usually up in the first couple of rows, but he also needs to come away from here with some good points.
I saw an interesting quote from Paul Tracy as we watched Jimmy Vasser make his way around the track. Paul Tracy switched from the Penske team from last year. He was left without a ride, went to the Newman Haas team to run in the Lola. The first Lola he drove was a 94 Lola, and his first impressions were, uh-oh, what have I done getting in this 94 Lola? Now, obviously, they're in the 95 Lola. They've done a lot of testing in the off-season for this type of circuit, and so far it's proven to work out pretty well for them, as he and Michael have been quickest everywhere they've gone. They just haven't had the result they would have liked after Miami.
Very much so, and I can recall those quotes that Paul was talking about, that the car wasn't maybe as good as the Penske was, and then there's been some drivers that had an opportunity to drive a Lola last year, also drive a 94 Reynard at the end of the season, then drive a 95 Reynard, and they said that the 94 Reynard was much better than the 94 Lola, but the 95 Reynard was much better than all of them combined. And I think that's why we saw the big transition from all the Lola runners in 94 going to Reynards in 1995, because a lot of people were dissatisfied with their 94 Lola cars.
As I say, there's 11 Reynards here today, 12 Lolas, and just the 3 Penskes, the 2 Penske team, and then of course Stephanie Johansson in the Bettenhausen team. Jimmy Vasser had a good run at Phoenix last year. I think he finished, or 2 years ago, finished third at Phoenix, had a great run in Milwaukee, and now having another great run for the Ganassi team. It's actually Ganassi Hayhoe. Jim Hayhoe didn't want to lose his franchise and kind of teamed up with Ganassi. Last year, Ganassi ran Gugelmin and Michael Andretti, but ran them as two separate teams, so two separate enterprises, didn't share information, didn't test together. This year, Ganassi said they're going to run a two-car team, but they've also got the input of Jim Hayhoe on that team, who was a big Jimmy Vasser fan, and that's who Vasser ran for last year.
Very much so, and Jimmy Vasser, as you said, is doing just a great job here. His teammate Brian Herta over the last two races has not fared so well. We sort of thought that maybe we'd see Brian Herta up in front of Jimmy Vasser, but at this point in time, I think we've got Vasser as being shown here in fourth, and he's doing just a great job, brings along STP sponsorship onto the target car, and I think between the two of those guys working together, they're both young Americans, that I think that they should have a great chance of finishing up in the top 10 in the series at the end of the year.
Scott Pruitt currently running 8th, the fastest of the Firestone cars, because he is the official Firestone team entry of the Pat Patrick team. They did a lot of off-season testing and a lot of testing last year, and Firestone have really come on and challenged Goodyear in the tire war that we're seeing develop in 1995.
Very much so, and that's all going to come to a head at the Speedway, at the Indianapolis 500, because that is the biggest race in IndyCar for sure. It's run by USAC, the United States Auto Club, and Firestone is coming back into IndyCar racing because of Indianapolis, and I think that they're going to look for a top finish there, and obviously try and sit on the front row, and we hope that maybe we can help them do that.
I was going to say, you wish you were doing that. Of course, Scott, you had the closest finish in the Indianapolis 500, drove all the way up from 32nd on the grid to lose by a couple of hairs to Al Unser Jr. A great Indy 500 for you. Obviously, a couple more seconds, you'd have loved it.
Well, we certainly would have. I mean, you sometimes relive that and replay that in your mind. And I have to tell you that recently I was traveling through the New York airport, and there's a company now that has a picture of that finish in a frame, and there's a little box in the bottom of it. And you go up and you push the button on the box, and it comes out, and it's the last call of the last lap of that race. And so somebody has very happily bought that for me and put it up in my office. So every time somebody walks into my office, they push that for me. So I relive it many times during the day. I think I'm waiting for the battery to wear it.
Hang on to that memory dearly there. Michael Andretti, our current leader, as we are on about lap 18 of 65 here at Australia, round 2 of the 1995 season. A bit of a bashing. You take quite a severe beating on this track, this tough street circuit. And as you can see, with all the concrete barriers, no room for mistakes here at Australia, as we now ride with Paul Tracy, who is currently listed in the 5th position behind Jimmy Vasser. Paul Tracy made that switch from the Penske team to the Newman Haas. He tested the Formula One last year. We may still see him make the Formula One ranks. I think it's something he's keen to do.
I think there was just some mention of that in the paper in the past couple of weeks here in America.
Let's take a ride on board with Paul Tracy and listen to his engine as we circulate around this track here in Australia.
Eurosport Live.
So 16 laps gone then out of the 65, live here from Surfers Paradise, and so far the story of this race has been penalties. Gilles de Ferran has had a stop-go penalty for driving across the chicane. He came into the pits, stopped and left the pits again, and then that was nearly another drama because Al Unser Jr. was also penalised. They left pit lane together. Unser overtook de Ferran in the pit lane, and he was penalised again, this time for speeding. So Gilles de Ferran and Al Unser are now way down the field in approximately 14th and 15th places. So very, very, very bad luck indeed for Gilles de Ferran, because up until then he was driving a tremendous race. But the order at the moment is this man, Michael Andretti, leading from Théo Fabi and Jacques Villeneuve. That's the top 3. Andretti in the Lola, Fabi in the Reynard, and Villeneuve in another Reynard. All Ford engines in the top 3. 4th is Jimmy Vasser, and this a tremendous drive from Vasser. A lot of people were very impressed by him when he did the Atlantic Series a couple of years ago and said if he ever got into IndyCar he'd be quick. well, he's doing well here at Surfers. In 5th place, Paul Tracy. Disappointing weekend again for Paul Tracy. He's been driving hard all afternoon so far to try and get past Jimmy Vasser. Every now and then he makes inroads into it. You can see there they are. That's Vasser leading Paul Tracy. But so far only 5th position for Andretti's teammate at Newman Haas. And yes, we do know they are at Newman Haas. And thank you all those of you who pointed out last week and when we were in Miami that I observed the wrong pit. In 6th position, rounding out the top 6, is Emerson Fittipaldi in the first of the Penske's. Behind him, Stefan Johansson. As we ride with Paul Tracy, behind him Stefan Johansson, and in 8th position Scott Pruitt in the Lola with the Firestone tyres. And you can see from these pictures on board with Paul Tracy just how demanding this circuit is. There's a new chicane here this year. They've tried to slow the cars down a bit through that very, very quick chicane on the back section. It's added about 1/10 of a mile to the Surfers Paradise circuit. But the times are still as quick as they ever were. Of course, that's motor racing. You can try and slow the cars down. You can try and make the circuit slower. But motor racing engineers are much cleverer than that. So we're seeing some very quick times. A lap record, by the way, from Michael Andretti. And it is bumpy. There are an awful lot of things to hit so far. Paul Tracy hasn't hit anything as he chases now still Jimmy Vasser. And this is the race for 4th position. And Paul Tracy very, very much closer now. Look at this, very much closer. In fact, he just went straight past Jimmy Vasser there. Vasser must have seen him surely. He seemed to overtake him fairly easily. That's a big gap he's closed there, Paul Tracy on Jimmy Vasser in the last 2 to 3 laps. I don't know if Vasser has a problem. But anyway, that's Paul Tracy now up to 4th place, and he'll be chasing after Jacques Villeneuve for a slot in the top 3. Now, does Jimmy Vasser have a problem? Well, it would appear that he has, because he's dropping way back. That's Fittipaldi now gone past Jimmy Vasser. Well, this is really bad luck. He had a tremendous race up until this point, but he obviously does have a major problem with the Reynard Ford. What a shame for Jimmy Vasser. That's moved everybody up a place. So Emerson Fittipaldi now up into 5th position in the first of the Penske Mercedes, and of course Al Jr. way back in the field after that second stop-go penalty of his, the second one for doing 91 miles an hour in the pit lane. The speed limit in the pit lane is 80 miles an hour. They'll allow you about 5 miles an hour over that maybe, but not 91 in the pit lane, Al Jr. So, just to recap, we are live from Surface Park. Oh dear, that's Buddy Lizier as we go back to Guy Hubbs and Scott Goodyear in Australia.
Now you'll see from the replay, locking up at the back. Maybe brake bias is a problem. He's just getting into a spin in that chicane. A local yellow flag as Jacques Villeneuve goes through, and the rest of the field will come by. Could see pit stops coming up any moment now. Well,
we're right in that window that we talked about now, and I think that we might even end up seeing a full course yellow here if they cannot get the car removed in a safe fashion. That's what CART likes to do, and any time on a street course if they cannot get the car moved off, it looks like now hopefully they'll be able to push it aside and without any delay of the race. But we must be in that fuel window. I suspect you're going to see a lot of guys trying to make some pit stops right now, and especially if the yellow comes out, because it's just time saved.
And of course, if the yellow comes out, if a full course yellow comes out, it really then depends on the leader. If the leader goes in, you'll go in. If the leader stays out, then you're tempted to stay out or come up with it. That's when everybody suddenly brains go into overdrive in pit lane. What do we do? What do we do?
And it happens so very, very quickly, not only on a track like this, but also on an oval track, for instance, a 1 mile track. And you almost have to go off of impulse. And if you can't see the leader sometimes, you don't know if he's ducked in. You rely on your crew to maybe tell you if the leader is in. But there again, these guys have to make their own guesstimation about where they are on fuel.
Emerson Fittipaldi carrying the number 2 for finishing second in the championship last year. The 1, 2, and 3, the Penske's finished, and they had, I think it was 6, 1, 2, 3 finishes between them in the season. And they are continuing to struggle with that team. It would appear they've got the new Mercedes engine, the Ulmore Mercedes engine, in the Penske chassis, and it would appear they are having the toughest time getting the chassis to work with that Mercedes engine compared to the Reynard Mercedes and the Lola Mercedes.
I think there's one interesting point here is that last year, the very first race, which was here in Australia, the Penske cars were not that competitive, but they got more competitive as the season wore on, and obviously very competitive at Indianapolis, and then they were on a roll from there. They were not competitive at the first race this year, which was at Miami. They come to the second event, and all of a sudden they're number 3 and 4 on the grid. So it doesn't take them long to be able to respond to any problems they have.
Well, Roger Penske, of course, one of the best guys preparing teams, running teams. He runs the IndyCar team, also runs the Winston Cup team. Rusty Wallace gets more wins in that series than anybody else. Michael Andretti, you see, leading this race. The Penskes are now up to 4th and 5th, or 5th for Emerson Fittipaldi. Paul Tracy currently in 4th. We're going to see pit stops. We're on lap 20 right now. I think we're going to see pit stops this time by. Vassar has gone into the pits after having his problems. We pointed out, we thought maybe fuel, but Michael Andretti continued to lead, and with a healthy lead at this point too.
He certainly seems like he's pulling away from the rest of the guys now. For a long time, we saw him just keep about a 4 or 5 car length in front of Teo Fabi, but now it looks like he's got about a 20 car length, and here comes Fabi into the pit, so the pit stops are now starting.
Teo Fabi, the first of the leaders in. Villeneuve stayed out and is going to fill it into that second position. Of course, they've still got to make their stops. As Fabi comes in, we understand that it's a transmission problem with the Jimmy Vasser team. So he is probably done for the day. Teo Fabi, a quick stop there as they get that fuel in. These tires they brought over, interesting story on those, Scott. From Miami, Goodyear shipped over about 2,000 tires. They shipped them on a plane. It cost them $100 a tire. Before Miami, in fact, 4 weeks ago, they shipped over the remainder of the 2,000 tires that they shipped over. It took them 4 weeks to get here, but it cost them a lot less than $100 a tire.
It's amazing how much it costs just to move this series from one racetrack to another, and obviously in America they can do it all by truck, but this one race that we compete at here in Australia is very, very cost consuming and obviously time consuming, and that's why they'd like to see another IndyCar race in Asia somewhere like Japan, so we can come over here and do 2 events.
Do 2 while you're here, and obviously string them together. They've changed the schedule this year in IndyCar to try and get the racing more concise into a smaller time period in the summer, so it doesn't conflict with other major sports. There in the background you see Buddy Lazier's car, so it doesn't conflict with other major sports in North America. And they've also tried to get the schedule so that the trucks aren't going across the country all the time, from the West Coast back to the Midwest, to the East Coast back to the West Coast. They're trying to put the races together so that all the Midwest races are together, save some money for the teams and travel time. But come July and June, we have 8 races in a row every weekend in June and July. So busy summer season for the IndyCar series this year.
And I think that's when you're going to start to see the larger teams that have a lot of resources behind them probably start to excel, and maybe that's where the championship will start to be molded at that point in time. And the people that have test teams, a separate car, separate crew, might turn around and be able to get underneath some of the problems they might have in their current race cars and maybe get through that and be able to come out on top of it. And that's the sort of thing that I think is going to help to win a championship.
It's going to be really tough too on a lot of the mechanics and crew having to put those 8 weeks together. And of course the biggest change in the schedule is this year we're running 5 races before the Indianapolis 500. Normally we just had the Australia race, Long Beach and Phoenix, and then straight to Indy. Now we've added the Miami race, and we also have the Nazareth date, which has been bumped all the way up from late in the season to early. In fact, there's the last race, an oval race before going to Indy.
That's right, and in one sense that's good because you get another chance to run on an oval track before you go to Indianapolis, but there again it's very hard in the crew. And to go back to what you were saying about having 8 races in a row, the last one of those 8 races in a row is the Michigan 500, which is a very punishing race. The track has been repaved this year in the Michigan facility. It's a 2-mile high bank track. We've seen speeds there of 236, 238 miles an hour on average, and the qualifying record I think is held by Mario Andretti at 234 miles an hour. Everybody is worried with the speeds now increasing all the time with these cars that with the track repaved will probably be up to over 240 miles an hour average on a high bank 2-mile track.
Wow, and that's certainly a racetrack that we know you love, of course, 2-time winner there, and Roger Penske loves it because he owns the facility, as he does Nazareth up in Pennsylvania. We'll be going there in just a few weeks and of course have live coverage for you on ESPN as Michael Andretti continues to lead. Surprised he hasn't made his stop yet. Teo Fabi has made his 22 laps in the book. We mentioned briefly that the Ford engine does seem to be good on economy. but to stretch out those 2 extra laps and still be able to lead this strongly and obviously run it very lean is great news for Ford, as we now see Emerson Fittipaldi come in for his pit stop. The Penske team going to work on that. Doesn't look like they're making any aerodynamic adjustments, changing all 4 tires, obviously refueling. The kart official watching, a little bit of a turn on the front wing, maybe a little more downforce. There you see Scott Pruitt in the number 20 on the Firestone tires come in for his pit stop. Didn't go out in the morning warm-up this morning. We're not quite sure why. Now the rest of the clan come in. Gilda Ferran. Also we see Brian Herder make his stop. And I think that's Hiro Matsushita getting back out on the track having made his stop.
Such an important time right now, because what happens is the crews are obviously changing the tires. They're adding 40 gallons of methanol and trying to get the car back out at least in front of the people that it came in front of, and at the very minimum you try and get at least 1 or 2 more positions for your driver, because it's easier sometimes to pass in the pits than it is on the race circuit.
Michael Andretti comes up alongside Alicio Salazar, the 3-time IMSA winner last year, coming through some of the back markers, and he is surely going to be coming in for his pit stop now, as the rest of the leaders have done so. And you mentioned getting the car back out on the track and trying to pick up a couple of positions. Looked like the Herder team had a pretty good stop going, but then the right front jackman had a bit of a trouble getting the pneumatic gun off the wheel, as now Michael Andretti does come into pit lane, and here you'll see the Newman Haas team go to work.
And this is just such an important time, as we were discussing before. You need to get in and out very efficiently, and as we talked about before, make sure you flip that toggle switch on the dash so you don't go over the speed limit.
There you see, changing all 4. Michael himself takes on a little replenishing too, with some Gatorade. See if they make any aerodynamic changes to that car. I don't imagine they will. It seems to be running so well for them. No, they don't. And he is back out underway in a very quick stop of 13.7 for Michael Andretti.
And you see Michael is pitted right. No, he locks the tires up there. The tires are cold now. They've been sitting in the pit lane. We do not have tire warmers in IndyCar racing like they do in Formula One. So the tires are cold, and it takes a lap or 2 to get them back up to working temperature, so you won't be able to lock them at that point in time and cause a flat spot. We were talking about Michael's pit position. He has a great pit position at the very end of pit lane, so he can come in 80 miles an hour, come into his pit stop, and then when he leaves, he's only got 1 or 2 pit stops in front of him. He can just light the tires up and go.
In that way, of course, by being towards the end means he can floor it, as we have a great camera shot now as Jacques Villeneuve's crew going to work. The number 27 Villeneuve taking on 40 gallons of methanol. Also obviously changing his tires. They're only allowed 28 tires for a weekend on regular races, apart from, of course, when they go to the super speedways such as Indianapolis, they get 60 tires for the weekend. You've got to be really careful. You've got to nurse these tires through the qualifying sessions, through the practice sessions, save some of them, in fact, for the race, maybe scrub them in a little bit, but obviously you don't want to use them up and wear them out before you come to Sunday's race. And we saw tires become a bit of a factor in Miami 2 weeks ago at the season opener. Gilda Ferran is back out after making his stop. And of course he had that stop and go penalty earlier on in the race after he was running as high as 2nd place.
And he's done such a great job, as we were talking about before, ever since he's come over here with the IndyCar circuit. And I think we're going to see him running up in the championship throughout the whole season, and probably is going to be a contender for Rookie of the Year.
Of course, that's a $50,000 payout if you win the Rookie of the Year. Last year's winner, Jacques Villeneuve, took a victory in picking up that Rookie of the Year honors. There's Eric Bachelard, who was out of this race early. We didn't think he took the green flag, but now he's locking him up, going into that left-hander, getting into a big spin. Obviously trying to make up for lost time from the beginning of the race. Maybe trying to go for the overachiever award a little bit.
Well, he could have also just come out of the pits. Those tires could have been cold, as we discussed before, and not had the adhesion on the road, and just bring the car around, and the car spun out on him. We got a full tank of fuel. The car is heavier, cold tires. It happens very quickly.
There you can see a big mark on the nose of Gilda Ferran, on the left front part of the nose, where obviously he tucked that car just underneath one of the tires of the guy in front of him and has scraped it, but doesn't seem to have done any damage to the wings at all, so he should be okay as far as that is concerned. But you just get an idea of just how close these guys run in racing conditions.
Talk about being close. The competition the last couple of years has been getting stiffer and stiffer, and I think we're probably into a season this year that you're going to see multiple race winners, whereas we only had a few last year. Dean Hall in the 99 car, the Subway sandwich car, looks like he's just off course. It seems like a lot of people are maybe coming out on cold tires and getting the car out from underneath them.
Dean Hall, of course, a guy who is used to speed. He's used to be a skier, then he became a speed skier, getting up to speeds of 130 miles per hour going down slopes in Colorado. Got hooked on the racing Goton Racing went into Toyota Atlantic Races, raced in that, and has made the step up. He's raced in IndyCar previously, but now has tried to put together a full season and running in the Dick Simon entry, the Subway sponsored car, the Dale Coyne entry, pardon me.
Just as we were watching here, it looks like Di Ferran has actually just clipped the wall with the left side of the car there, just going through one of those chicanes. Just momentarily there, he just brushed the wall quite quickly, and as we talked about before, Michael brushed the wall.
Nearly 30 laps gone then here at Surfers Paradise as you rejoin us live, and it's an interesting race because of this man, number 8, Gilles de Ferran, having suffered a penalty, now fighting his way back up through the field. But if you are a fan of Michael Andretti, then this is your race. If you've got up especially early to see Michael Andretti win for Newman Haas, well, at the moment, it looks as though that is going to happen. It looks as though he's heading for his 30th IndyCar victory. But of course, every time a commentator says that, it does not happen. But a perfect race so far for Mario's son, Michael, in this, the car you're watching now, the Newman Haas Lola Ford. He had a perfect pit stop. They've been in for the first of the fuel stops, and look at Michael banging it over those curbs. I cannot believe this car takes 65 laps of that kind of punishment. But as you watch, having your breakfast in the Reynard and Lola and Penske factories around the country, I'm sure you'll be thinking, well, of course they take that kind of punishment. That's what we build them for. However, Surfers Paradise always, of all circuits, amazes me with the amount of banging and crashing they take over the curbs. And Michael, with visor up there, taking a breather. But all so far seems well. I just thought maybe there may have been a slight problem there with the Lola. But we have been under a yellow flag period, a couple of spins. We had Buddy Lazier off, and a moment ago we had Eric Bacala off. Nothing of any consequence really. These guys running at the back of the field. But Michael, yes, I thought so, behind the pace car. Michael lifting his visor there, just taking a breather as he follows the Mercedes pace car around. I think this must be because of Eric Bacalat's spin at the other side of the circuit. 26 laps gone. Very few incidents so far here at Surfers. Normally we'd expect to have a tremendous number of yellow flags, but it's been a fairly incident-free race so far. And as I say, all the fuel stops went very smoothly. But that is not Eric Bacalat's car. That is difficult to see because it's right behind the tow truck there. But Villeneuve's okay, Fabi's okay. There they are. Jacques Villeneuve running in 3rd position. Emerson Fittipaldi up to 5th behind Paul Tracy. And there's Al Jr., the number 1 Penske Mercedes, carrying number 1, of course, last year's IndyCar champion. Quickly in, quickly out. Al Jr. taking advantage of the yellow flag period, as of course he would, particularly as both he and, speaking of de Ferran, there he is, as both he and Gilles de Ferran in the Reynard are trying to work their way back up through this field after stop-go penalties. So here they are running together again. Al Jr., number 1, and Gilles de Ferran, number 8. These guys are the guys to watch this afternoon. Michael Andretti has a pretty healthy lead, and there's not that much excitement right up at the front, but it will be very intriguing and exciting to see how far Al Jr. and Gilles de Ferran can get up through the field before the end of the race. About 1 hour gone now. 30 odd laps gone. And of course, pit work in IndyCar racing is always interesting to watch. We're used to seeing refueling now in Formula One, although a lot of people wish we weren't. But IndyCar, of course, have been doing it forever. And Andretti had a particularly good pit stop. He's right at the end of the pit lane there, so he's easily and quickest back out onto the circuit. And the IndyCar crews really have got it down to a fine art. These cars, of course, much heavier than Formula One cars. They don't stop as well. And they take advantage of these yellow flag periods to come in. And this has now been going on 3 or 4 laps, this one. but the pace car peels away, and it is Andretti who leads away. As we rejoin now our American commentators, Scott Goodyear and Guy Hobbs.
They went past him, I think, on both sides here. Jacques Villeneuve was trying to get past Teo Fabi. It's a great time on a restart to try and get past cars, because after a lap or two, people start to stretch out, and you have to not only make up the distance, but also get past them.
Now, a lot of these guys have come out with cold tyres after the pit stop and literally gone straight into a yellow flag situation. So they really haven't had a lot of time to get some good heat into these tyres. Also, oil temperatures will have gone down and brake temperatures gone down. Very important this first lap to just be a little cautious.
And that's why you see on the yellow flag situations, a lot of the guys weaving in and out, as we have an opportunity to see Robbie Gordon make an appearance for the first time. It looks like Brian Herta making a run on the inside of Matsushita. All these guys are trying to make up time right now as we're discussing when the race has just begun to run again, for the simple reason that it's a great opportunity to get past guys when the pack is close together.
And there you see, right at the end of the field, Alonso Jr. and Gil de Ferran running at the back of the remaining pack of approximately 20 cars still running. 26 cars started this race. Not everyone, of course, makes the move to come to Australia because it's so expensive to get the cars over to the facility, bring all the team over, put them up in a hotel. So a lot of teams you do see skip this event. Of course, obviously the major teams do not miss it. And Newman Haas, being a major team, are leading it right now with Michael Andretti, his teammate Paul Tracy, back in fourth behind Teo Fabi and Jacques Villeneuve. Then Emerson Fittipaldi, the first of the Penskes. And right back at them towards back is Alonso Jr. Looks like Robbie Gordon, too. We've seen him come into the picture a couple of times in the Walker Motorsports entry. He could be making his charge. Now up to ninth. And right behind him, Bobby Rahal, Stefan Johansson, of course, out of Sweden. Big viewership in Sweden supporting Stefan Johansson.
And he's got one of the Penske chassis that we talked about before. It's a winning Penske chassis that was used by Al Jr. and Emerson Fittipaldi and Paul Tracy last year. And essentially what they do is they get the car that's been used by that team at the end of the year, along with some engine and some other modifications, and they get an opportunity to test it throughout the winter and have basically all the racetrack setups that they were using the previous year from Penske.
The Bettenhausen team was stuck with that Penske, and they had the Ilmore, of course, before. Now they're running the Mercedes engines. And they've had some great qualifying runs and some great races, but they've also had some major disappointments, and many times Johansson's been running up third, fourth, fifth position and either got caught up with a tail marker, back marker, or some kind of mechanical failure towards the end of the race. And a bad example would be Long Beach, where he didn't even make the green flag, where he got together with Mario Andretti and just generally seemed to be having a lot of bad luck on our Bettenhausen team. As the field now makes their way through back to, and that's Alessandro Zampedri spinning where exactly his teammate Eric Bachelard had a spin earlier. Not a good day for that team to that particular point of the track.
Now, and there again, it's the section of track where you're actually going along the crown in the road, and you're trying to go up over the crown and then back into the left-hand portion and back on top of another crown coming, because the two roads meet at that certain spot. Very, very tricky spot, and it seems like everybody seems to be spinning there today.
Looks like we're going to get another full course yellow. It looks like they may have started to have a full course yellow and then may have changed their mind. I think what probably happened was Zampedri stalled it and they had nowhere to push him off to, and then they must have been able to get him underway again, and he's moved and out of the way. But at one point it looked like he probably wasn't going to be able to. Michael Andretti continues to lead. Emerson Fittipaldi making up.
So, half distance now here at Surfers Paradise, and no change in the lead, although a good battle for second, third and fourth places developing, I think, between Teo Fabi, Jacques Villeneuve and Paul Tracy. I think we're going to get some good racing there behind Michael Andretti. We're running, just before you rejoined us there, running under another yellow flag period, but back now racing, and there is Emerson Fittipaldi, who runs in fifth position behind Paul Tracy, just under half distance, as we stay with Emerson in a much improved Penske, but not nearly good enough, because fifth position will not be good enough for anybody at Penske, that's for sure. And Villeneuve now is in a very strong position, having won the first round of the series at Miami. He now runs here in Australia in third place, so if he stays where he is or does better, he's going to have a good position at the top of the championship. And Maurizio Gugelmin, by the way, who is second in the series so far, is down in 9th position at the moment. So not a happy weekend so far for Maurizio. And we've seen nothing of Bobby Rahal. Scott Pruitt in the Firestone car is in 7th place. So after a very encouraging start in Miami, Firestone not so on the pace here at Surfers. But this man is Michael Andretti in the Newman Haas Lola Ford, followed by Teo Fabi and Jacques Villeneuve, and they're that close. And I think, if anything, Fabi is making inroads into Andretti's lead. Let's hope so, because we need some action up here at the front of the race. I think these men are going to feature all through the season. Well, of course they are, because these are three of the top guys, and they're going to be so all through the year. There's Jacques Villeneuve, a great win in Miami, and a good position so far here at Surfers. He drives so neatly, Jacques Villeneuve. Somebody made the comment during the week that he seems to show none of the wildness that Gilles showed. But of course, on a street circuit like this, you just can't afford to do that. One mistake and you're in the wall. And Jacques Villeneuve badly needs these points if he's going to win his first ever IndyCar championship this year. People are talking now about not if he'll go to Formula One, but when he'll go to Formula One. So already a lot of pressure on Jacques Villeneuve in the number 27. Youngest man in the race. There's the order. Almost half distance. Andretti, Fabi, Villeneuve, Johansson and Tracy. And Johansson up to 4th position ahead of Paul Tracy. It's been a good weekend all round for Stefan Johansson as we follow Jacques Villeneuve round in the Reynard Ford, Team Green's Reynard Ford. But it has been a very, very good weekend for Stefan Johansson as we rejoin our American team of Guy Hubbs and Scott Goodyear live on Eurosport from Australia.
Go away at least winning quite a few more races and have an opportunity to maybe have a good run at Indianapolis. He also has finished 2nd there, and I can tell you that once you finish 2nd, you really want to go back and win.
You really want to go back and win. Bobby Rahal right behind Mauricio Guzman running in the Pac West team. Mauricio Guzman has just signed a new 2-year contract with Hollywood Cigarettes out of South America. So he looks like he's set for sponsorship for the next couple of years. Guzman led in Miami, finished 2nd, a great day for him. Pac West, in fact, the team, a new team, had a great run in Miami with Sullivan as high as 3rd at one point before having a late spin. This weekend, though, the Pac West team seems to be struggling a little bit, and we know that both of them had transmission problems in qualifying and in practice, and obviously just general setup as we ride on board with Bobby Rahal.
Yeah, I believe that they both had to go to their backup cars in both Friday and Saturday sessions, and that can really throw the whole routine off. When you get one car that you really like, you try to use that every weekend, and they're going back to their spare car in both situations for both those guys. I'm sure it probably threw off the rhythm a little bit.
A great battle, too, as we see in front Guzman, but there's a great battle behind Rahal. Let's listen to his motor as we go around this track just a couple more laps. He's trying to get the move on Guzman, but he's got to be very careful and keep his eye on the mirrors. There's a ton of guys trying to get by Rahal. Down the straightaway, Bobby Rahal, 2-time PBG champion, really had 2 fairly disastrous years. Decided to go with his own chassis, didn't work for him, didn't even get into the Indianapolis 500. Decided to go with the Honda engines, almost didn't make, well, he didn't make it into the 500 with a Honda engine, had to borrow a car and an engine from Roger Penske. Still running his own team, but this year he's gone back to his old Lola, which he's always been keen on. Now running the Mercedes engine, looking like a good season ahead for Bobby Rahal and his teammate Raul Boesel.
And Bobby's 3rd in the points championship after the Miami event, and going to pick up some good, valuable points here. Like we talked about earlier, a guy that always is there at the end.
There you see the drivers are out. Fernandez, we saw out with the crash. Christian Fittipaldi is out with transmission problem. And Jimmy Vasser, who was running fairly well, also went out with a transmission problem. Vasser was as high as 4th at one point. Here is the battle for 3rd. Johansson chasing down Villeneuve, and right behind Johansson, Paul Tracy. Good battle. We've got the 3 different chassis here. The Reynard, followed by the Penske, then the Lola. And I think right behind Paul Tracy, we see Scott Pruitt.
And so that Scott Pruitt's following up then on Firestone tires. So it's a great combination here of all the guys together with everybody, different chassis, different engines, and different tires, and everybody eager to get points.
Stefan Johansson certainly had a storied career. He's raced for all the top teams in Formula One. Really didn't get the results he wanted there. Came over, looked at IndyCar for a couple of years, finally got a ride. Now really considered to be in one of the better prepared teams and better financed and better material teams, but still just not getting the results he wants. And Scott Pruitt now we see coming on strong. Those Firestone tires have really come in well to this season.
They did a great job in Miami. I was there walking around the track, watching the race cars on the circuit itself, and the Firestone tires looked like they were really taking well to the race circuit itself. And we understand that there's a lot of debris going around the racetrack right now, and maybe that Scott Pruitt have picked up a plastic bag somewhere in the radiator. So if that is the case, then we'll be blocking the air to the radiators. The engine might start to run hot, and he would have to make an unscheduled pit stop to come in and remove that. That
could certainly hurt him. Tracy looks like he's going around one of the back markers as they go into that turn. A couple of years ago, we saw Mansell picked up a cap on the front wing, and then that flew from the wing. As now Tracy looks down the inside of Villeneuve, watch him lock up that left front and probably the right front too. No, he does it smoothly, gets under there very nicely, makes that move, putting now Paul Tracy up into the third position.
And he's now going to start to set his sights on Stefan Johansson.
Pardon me, the fourth position, because Johansson has managed to get by Villeneuve too. So do you think, we saw right at the beginning of the race, Villeneuve started second. Everybody seemed to be able to work their way past him fairly well, and then he seemed to be holding up the rest of the gang. And now we're seeing that same situation where Johansson has been able to get by him. Tracy really got by him without too much trouble, and now can Scott Pruitt get by him?
Well, it's maybe a situation that his car works good in one segment of a fuel load, and for instance, they just filled up and they've only run a few laps, so maybe the car runs better with light fuel loads because he was up there a little closer to the pack when the tanks were light. So here's an opportunity just to have to sit back and watch to see what goes on here.
Great camera shot out of the back of Paul Tracy's Lola Ford entry, the Newman Haas entry. New team for Paul Tracy, done over 3,000 testing miles this past winter, and looking to be very strong. Of course, looking for his first IndyCar championship. He finished third in it a couple of times and obviously out to win. The main thing you see in that picture, obviously apart from the rear wing at the back, is the pop-off valve, a major part of IndyCar racing. Scott, why don't you sort of run through exactly what that pop-off valve does?
Basically what it's doing is it's limiting the pressure in the intake manifold, as we call the plenum, and it's an opportunity for CART to be able to govern the horsepower of the engine to basically make sure that everybody's running at 45 inches of pressure inside the engine, inside the plenum, and not going anything over that. A lot of people try to fix the pop-off valve in past years, and they've now come out with an electronic system which is very, very good, not allowing the engines to go to 47 to 48 inches of boost pressure inside that turbo motor. And so here's an opportunity for everybody to run at the same pressure and hopefully be legal.
And of course, once you do go over that, the reason it's called a pop-off valve, because it basically does pop off and you lose power. Then, of course, you've got to get it back and underneath. Another thing you may have noticed at the back of that picture with the clouds in the background, we may see some rain here yet. 35 laps are completed. Of course, once we're over halfway, they can red flag the race and it will count as the positions you finish in. Last year, of course, we saw stop, start, big delay. This one's going to be enough in the books to count as a race, and I don't think it's going to be enough rain. Obviously, it needs to be a really serious downpour. We need to collect water on the track. We do have the wet tires, and if it's just drizzling, they'll switch to those and go out. And of course, then we see all strategies that we've been planning, all ideas, all pit stop, that's all gone out the window. And suddenly, new tires, new race starts, as now Paul Tracy is chasing down Stefan Johansson. Great run for Johansson in the number 16 entry.
He's doing a great job. I can tell you from experience at this circuit here, when it rains, it seems like it just comes down in buckets, and you have to almost drive in the center of the racetrack to run on the high side of the crown of the road. And we've seen here in past years when it started to rain, people just going along the straightaway that you're seeing here, Lakeshore Boulevard, and people just doing pirouettes, 360s because of the hydroplaning.
That hydroplaning a big trouble, and also you go to a racing school, you're told what the racing line is, you follow that racing line, and that's the quick way around the track. The moment it rains, throw out all racing lines because all the rubber is being laid down there. The water hits the rubber, it's like ice. So suddenly the racing line changes, and you see guys going around the outside of corners, miles away from any apex, where they're trying to get on the part of the track that's not being smoothed out, and they're trying to get grip. And then, of course, you see the guys trying to save the wet tires by deliberately running on the dry part of the track to keep the heat in them and to get the water off, because then, or not to dissipate the heat. It can be a real varying situation with rain, depending on how much rain you get. Do they run in a wet line? Do they run on a dry line? There's a great battle unfolds right in front of us. Paul Tracy chasing down Stephanie Johansson. And Johansson behind Fabi and Michael Andretti, who has been our leader all the way through. Michael Andretti has 2 points in the championship. One for the pole at Miami, one for leading the most laps. Well, he's given 2 more because he had the pole here and also will have now led the most laps in this race. So no points from winning or finishing in the top 12, but picked up 4 points. And of course, all those points add up at the end of the season.
Oh, they certainly do. And I think I can think back to the Bobby Rahal, Michael Andretti battle a few years ago, where Michael lost the championship by only about 2 points. So anytime that you can pick up a point or any points at all, it's so valuable at the end of the year.
As we ride on board once again with Paul Tracy going through the gears into the left-hander, followed by a right-hander. Another left-hander, pardon me, I'm on the wrong part of the track.
Here, this is the long straightaway where you're going to start winding through the gears. You'll hear them now from 2nd, 3rd, 4th, up to 5th gear. About 190 miles an hour going down to this left-right chicane. And here we have the beach, which is off to our right-hand side. You take a flick to the left, a flick to the right. You see the drivers drive over the curbing there. And another winding up through the gears here, probably up to about 175 miles an hour. This is the newer chicane. They've put a couple little extra turns in here to slow the cars down. This is where Robbie Gordon had his big accident last year. Now you're coming up to a tricky section here because you have to make that quick right turn to get the car balanced before you make this left-hand jog going up through this little tricky section here. Another right-hand jog, and you're going to do a left-right combination here. Good opportunity to make up time on a competitor in front of you. You're always working the brakes, always working the accelerator. And here we come back onto the main straight, 2nd gear, wind up through 3rd, 4th, 5th. Let's listen to the engine here. Past the pits on the left-hand side, coming into the turn 1 chicane, coming from about 185 miles an hour down to 50. See the grandstands on the right-hand side and all the suites.
Big crowd on hand too for the Australia race. Australians, huge motor racing fans.
Great fans.
Villeneuve slow on the track by the looks of things.
Well, we know it was not going to be fuel because he seems to be well within the window, but very possibly transmission problems like a lot of the other cars today.
We saw 2 other cars go out. He's in the pit lane. And here you see him pulling into the pit lane, and as you pointed out, transmission's taking a beating here in Australia. Maybe that's his problem. He'll come in. It doesn't look like the crew is fairly terminal. They're
yeah,
not
I would
running.
say maybe even the engine, because he knows the engine's off or something.
He's out the car. He's done. So our 1995 points leader, Jacques Villeneuve, the young Canadian, had a win last year at Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, is out of this race. A disappointing run for him. He was as high as 2nd, qualified 2nd. We did see him get past with ease on a number of occasions. We were speculating whether the car was handling well under certain fuel loads or not, but obviously not a good day for Villeneuve, and something he doesn't normally do. He's taken his helmet off. Jack's got a bit of a reputation for walking from his motorhome to the pit and to the car and to and from with his helmet on, just so he avoids everybody and obviously keeps himself focused on what he's got to get done that day. But obviously a very disappointed Jacques Villeneuve. That bumps everybody up a position as Michael Andretti continues to lead with over 35 laps in the books. Give Michael Andretti a bonus point for leading the most laps. And in about another 6 to 7 laps, we should see the 2nd round of pit stops. It's Andretti, Teo Fabi, Stefan Johansson. Talk about an international field. Paul Tracy, the Canadian, and Scott Pruitt out of Nevada, running in 5th, coming back into the championship with the Pat Patrick team and the Firestone tires. We talked about international. We have 15 international drivers representing 10 countries. And at some point, Scott, we should be able to tell you what this sounds like when you hear it in Mandarin Chinese.
Well, that's something that I know I'm going to like to hear, but I'm not going to understand it.
All right, in fact, for all the international viewers, here's what IndyCar racing sounds like in Mandarin Chinese.
国际车手的大会决。
Or maybe not. Michael Andretti continues.
Michael Andretti 现在继续处在领先的位置。
Eurosport. Eurosport Live.
You rejoin us live from Surfers Paradise, and the big story, of course, of the middle part of the race is the retirement of Jacques Villeneuve. So if you're a fan of Jacques Villeneuve, you may as well crawl back into your bed and get a bit more sleep. It is fans of Michael Andretti who will be extremely happy they got up early this morning. He has driven a perfect race so far, and look at this. This is Tracy right up behind Stefan Johansson. These guys have been going at it hammer and tongs the last few laps. This is the battle of the race here around the streets of Surfers Paradise. Paul Tracy absolutely on form this weekend after a bad Miami, and Stefan Johansson, well, nobody, hardly anybody at least, has got more experience than Stefan Johansson in a single-seater around a street circuit. This man's driven just about everything, and he's not going to let Paul Tracy by unless he absolutely has to. But as we know, Paul Tracy is prone every now and then to a little red mist. He's very late on the brakes, is Mr. Tracy, and it's damn difficult to overtake at Surfers Paradise. So taking all of that into account as we ride with the leader, Michael Andretti, we could be in for a tremendous battle, as Andretti is in for fuel, and as you can see, he's got almost the perfect pit right at the end of pit lane. Very, very short distance back onto the circuit. But as we were saying, a pity we had to cut away there from a tremendous battle between Paul Tracy and Stefan Johansson, who are third and fourth, incidentally, in this race, as Michael Andretti gets the Newman Haas Lola back out onto the circuit. New tyres, remember, and these tyres are not up to working temperature. Whoa, as Michael locks the right front, as we were about to talk about tyres not being up to temperature. Anyway, he's safely through that one, and this one, whoa, Michael. He really is all or nothing, this man Andretti, and he is an unpredictable driver. Michael can appear to have all the lead in the world, but as you see there, he can every now and then appear to throw it all away. And if he does it here, it'll be the second weekend running for him. I think he's all got it, but I think he's good grief. Michael Andretti was lucky to get away with that one. It's quick into that corner. And big sigh of relief in the Newman Haas pit there. Anyway, he does lead there. Car number 6, Andretti, the Newman Haas Lola. He does lead from and there they are. Here is Stefan Johansson and Paul Tracy. It's still the same order, but it's Johansson and not by much, as Tracy looks for any way by he can find, and there aren't many ways by here at Surfers Paradise. If there is one, Paul Tracy will find it, but Stefan Johansson is a man used to this kind of thing. He can drive a racing car flat out and have a look in his mirrors. So Paul Tracy's going to have his work cut out. But we're looking at third position, don't forget here, so it's important stuff, and grey clouds we see now above the circuit. Let's hope it doesn't rain, because it's going to ruin a good race if it does, as Paul Tracy takes a tear off the visor so that he can see Stefan Johansson a bit better. Maybe there's a bit of oil smoke coming from Johansson, but he's going to need the best view he can get in this battle for third position. That's Scott Pruitt in the fast-owned shod Lola, and into the pits is Teo Fabi in that some may think very pretty pink and white car, as Teo sits. Oh, and he's out. That's the end of the race for Teo Fabi. We don't know what the problem is. Oh, it's engine problem. They're taking the engine cover off. Jacques Villeneuve, by the way, we think was transmission. And talking about those people who are out of the race, Christian Fittipaldi is out as well. We've seen nothing of Raul Boesel, and poor Teo looks very fed up. The little Italian, driven a great race. He was looking at a sure second place, and it looks as though the engine on that Reynard has given up the ghost. And here's the battle again. Stefan defending third position against Paul Tracy. No, Stefan leads now, of course, because of Michael Andretti's pit stop. Michael Andretti went in for fuel, which allowed Stefan to take the lead, as we rejoin now our American commentators, Scott Goodyear and Guy
Looks
Hobbs.
like maybe Bobby might walk away with a points lead from Australia.
He could well do, as you say, because Paul Tracy, of course, scored no points in Miami. Stefan Johansson scored very few. In fact, if any, he didn't score any. So it will put him up to 20, because Rahal finished third in Miami and get some points. at this point, do you think Paul Tracy's going, darn, I wish I was still in that Penske from last year? And how much has it helped him to go to the Lola team with all that information from Penske from last year?
Well, the cars are certainly different. They're different manufacturers and designed and built differently. But it's got to be a little bit hard for him to be sitting back there in a Lolo looking at a car that's a year old that he drove last year that's in front of him, and he wants to get past it so badly. But right now he's doing a great job by sitting back, being neat and tidy, not making any mistakes, because he also didn't earn any points in Miami and needs to come away with points from Australia.
Paul Tracy had a bit of a reputation as a crasher. He seemed to clear that up. And Scott, ironic story is you actually taught the guy at the racing school up in Canada.
Well, it's funny because I started Formula Ford racing in 1980 and did that for 3 years, and then owed so much money I had to go and make money. So I opened up a racing school, and Paul Tracy was one of the students that came through at that time. Emerson
Fittipaldi, who went to racing school many, many years ago and has since given many clinics on racing, is now in for his scheduled pit stop, changing all 4 tires, taking on the 40 gallons of methanol again. Seems to be a little slow there, and then they are back out underway. At the moment, it is Stephanie Johansson with the lead. Paul Tracy is in second. Bobby Rahal, by our calculations, has worked his way up to third, and we'll run down the remaining leaderboard for you as soon as we can get it all updated after this round of pit stops.
Guy, as you were talking about before, that Australia is always a race of first. It might be the first race for Stefan Johansson to win an IndyCar.
And it'd be great to see him win one. I think he certainly deserves one. Someone else I'd love to see a race also is Raul Boesel, who's not been doing very well here this weekend. There you see the list of drivers out. Fernandez with the wall, Fittipaldi with the transmission, Jimmy Vasser with the transmission. Eric Bacalard had trouble right at the beginning of the race. We saw him reappear. Villeneuve is out, and we're not quite sure why. And now Teo Fabi, as we just saw, go out also after having just inherited the lead from Michael Andretti's pit stop. Now we're going to see, of course, Michael Andretti make his charge through the field as Tracy still continues to shadow Johansson. Fabi, I guess, also went out with a gearbox trouble, so that is certainly proven to be the troubles here. And we talked about it before in the show. The Pac West team, both their cars suffered transmission troubles in the practice and qualifying session, so they really are taking a beating here now. I guess it's to the point to the guy that can nurse his transmission and not push his car as much as he has to get to the finish here. We are, of course, over halfway at this point.
Well, it's very important, and also has sometimes to do with the driver's style, how he actually is operating itself on the gearbox. And some guys are a little smoother than others, but sometimes that comes into play. But I have to say, the very first race of the year, it must have to do with the design of the gearbox possibly, or something internally, because there's too many cars going out of the event at this time with gearbox failure.
Temperature's about 75 degrees, a little bit of a wind coming off the coast. There's a 15% chance of rain. We saw some clouds earlier. It looks like we're going to be able to get this race in, though, because we only have 22 odd laps remaining, and we still need to see these two make their pit stop. I said Rahal was up to third. He's actually in fourth, trailing Scott Pruitt. But remember, both of those guys still to make their pit stops. And currently in fifth, Michael Andretti, having made his, and he feels at this point he can go to the end of the race without obviously having to stop again. We saw the first round of pit stops come, and Andretti didn't actually stop until about lap 23, so he should be safe to the end of this race.
He should have enough fuel on board, as you're mentioning from what we've seen before. Interesting point here in Miami, Bobby Rahal, Scott Pruitt having a battle for position. And almost the same thing here.
And now Scott Pruitt makes his pit stop, so this position battle could take place on pit lane or back out on the track. Right before Pruitt, you also saw Alessandro Zampedri bring his car into pit lane. He could be done for the day. He came in very slowly. The crew all done. Very quick pit stop for him. Pruitt, sounds like a little bit of trouble getting the gear there, but pulls out of pit lane, sticks to the speed limit, and is back out underway. A clean stop for him. Rahal still to make his stop. Gilda still to make his stop. And Gilda, I believe, has worked his way up the pack fairly well. Fittipaldi, we know, has made his second pit stop. And Alonso Jr., of course, don't forget, he's still out there somewhere. Had his 2 stop-and-go penalties, and he will have made, or will be making, his second pit stop very shortly. Tracy having a look down the inside, but no room. These two guys, I mean, are really battling close. You'd think they'd maybe nurse it a little more than they are, because they know they've still got to make that second round of stops yet. And we've seen these transmission have troubles, and we've seen, obviously, in the past, a lot of incidents on a track like this where you can't make a mistake, you can't go offline, because the moment you can't make contact with the wall, your day is done.
Well, I think it's important to point out that the cars that are having transmission problems are Reynards. We have two cars here, a Penske car that's a year old that did have any transmission problems. They probably were repaired last year by Penske. And Paul Tracy and a Lola, we don't think that any Lola cars have been having any transmission problems from anything that we've heard from testing or racing so far this year.
A great battle down under in Australia, round 2 of the 1995 season. The Swede, Stefan Johansson, continues to lead. Canadian Paul Tracy is in second. Scott Pruitt was in third, but just made his pit stop. So Rahal, who is now making his pit stop, Rahal had been bumped up to third, is now going to drop back a couple of spots as the Rahal-Hogan team go to work on that car. Bobby Rahal third in the championship at the moment.
As you rejoin us, we're in the pits with Bobby Rahal, and this is a good race for Bobby Rahal, as I think Gilles de Ferran went in right behind him there. But this is a good race for Bobby Rahal. He's holding down 4th position. He's already lying 3rd in the series after Miami, and Jacques Villeneuve is out of the race. So just to recap, Stefan Johansson is leading from Paul Tracy, but of course that's a slightly false position in that they have not yet had their pit stops, and this is the battle. We are with Paul Tracy, and he's trying every which way around Stefan Johansson, but Stefan Johansson is having none of it, and they must be due any second now for their pit stops, these two. But it's a fantastic battle, as you can see for yourselves, and look at this, that's how close they are as they come over the bumps, on the brakes, down into the left-hander, flick right. Stefan knows exactly where Tracy is. So much experience, and I don't think that Tracy's going to be able to get by Johansson, unless, of course, the Newman-Haas team do a better pit stop than Bettenhausen. But we shall see, that's all yet to come. Andretti, the man who led all afternoon, is down in 5th position, but then he has had his pit stop. And Tracy is very quick into pit lane. Slight problem with the fuel hose on Johansson. This is a fantastic little battle here. I wonder if we're going to see a position change in the pit lane. Who is going to get this pit stop done first? Newman-Haas look as though everything's going smoothly. It looks as though Tracy's out before. Yes, Tracy is out before Johansson. So a position change in pit lane, and we saw that in Miami. Don't forget, that's how Villeneuve won his race in Miami. Paul Tracy will be very, very chuffed indeed with that. Great pit work by the Newman-Haas team. Gets Paul Tracy out in front of Stefan Johansson. The tyres are cold, watch it. Whoop. But if he can keep this together, then he's looking very strong indeed, and he needs to after a disastrous weekend in Miami, Paul Tracy. Stefan Johansson will be unhappy with that. Little Leaf will not like that. Losing a position in the pit lane is not a good thing to happen. As we go back now, live in Surfers Paradise, to Scott Goodyear and Guy Hobbs.
Tracy running for the Newman-Haas team this year. Big switch from him from Penske. He was the 3rd driver for Penske, and really, I mean, it's a tough choice. Who do you let go from Penske? You've got Emerson Fittipaldi, possibility of retiring in a couple of years. Obviously, you can't let Alan Jr. go. He's won 8 races in the championship and the Indianapolis 500 for you. But at the same time, Paul Tracy's won many races for the Penske team. But Penske really just couldn't run a 3-car team like he would have liked for another full year. Had to let Paul Tracy go.
I think the other thing too is that you have an opportunity as a franchise holder to only own 2 franchises, and with 3 cars they could not have the 3 franchises, and that way a franchise gives you starting money, TV money, and all the things that go along with franchise ownership in sports. So Roger Penske elected to probably only retain 2. So it's very interesting to see that he had to let the 1 driver go. Paul Tracy got himself a good position with Newman-Haas in the Kmart car, and here he is finding himself leading the Australian Grand Prix.
As you mentioned, or as we mentioned earlier, no points for Paul Tracy from Miami. And here is our leader, Michael Andretti. Judging by our calculations, he did get past that pit lane. So Michael Andretti, who's led many, many laps here so far today, out in front. Al Unser Jr. back in pit lane for a scheduled pit stop. The 2 early in the race were not scheduled, and he's desperately trying to make up time lost at the beginning of the race. And now, of course, at this point, he realizes obviously the win is out of the question, but a good high place finish to get as many points as he can in the championship. They've extended the series by 1 race this year, 17 races, makes it more chances to score more points, but then again, you've got to be more consistent.
Very much so, and obviously the first race next year will probably be at Disney World in Florida. It will not be part of the kart schedule, which is a series you're watching now, but it will be part of the IRL series, which is run by Tony George and USAC, which also runs the Indianapolis 500. But saying that's part of the series might be a little bit off, but I think all the competitors in the IndyCar series and the kart series itself will be going to that event because it will be such a high-profile event. It already holds a purse of over $1 million.
And you mentioned Disney World, of course. If anybody can attract people, Disney World can. And they are building that facility especially for that event. And they are building more attractions down in Orlando in Florida. And you're right, I think we're going to see a lot of these guys, if not racing there, they're going to be there to see what's going on. A lot of controversy at the moment between the IRL, the Indy Racing League, and the kart, which is the championship also racing teams. We've already had this problem years ago when USAC and kart split up, and now basically USAC is trying to get back into running of the IndyCar series. They want to make it so it's less expensive, a little slower on the cars, but not by aerodynamically, but by giving them a smaller engine. And they really want to bring back more American drivers, the American drivers out of the midget and the oval circuits, give them a chance to run the big-time Indy cars. It's going to be interesting to see what happens throughout the rest of this season, and of course in the off-season, at the end of this season for 1996. Right now, 1995, though, Michael Andretti continuing to lead here in Australia. Paul Tracy, his teammate, is second, getting that position from Johansson in pit lane. Bobby Rahal in fourth. Scott Pruitt is currently in fifth. A good run for him. Someone we have not seen all day, Robbie Gordon. I'm surprised that he has not even fared anywhere at all in this picture.
And Robbie Gordon had such a strong run here at Australia last year. He was always running up front in qualifying, always running strong, ran up front during the race, always up in the points paying position until he had a crash in the back section. Got to be a very frustrating time for him for the first two races, not collecting any points, and was clearly expecting to be a contender for the championship this year. We're not saying that's gone away, but certainly it's very difficult to be not collecting points at this point in time and still have a run at the championship.
Looked like a little mistake there by Michael. He locked it up, and then it sounded like he had trouble selecting a gear coming out of the turn. Doesn't seem to have affected him too much as he's back on the speed and full past the pit lane area to complete lap 47, I believe, 67. Michael Andretti really just dominating this event here. Robbie Gordon, we talked about him, and what a guy he races. I mean, you give him anything, he'll race it. And between Miami and here, in fact, he did an off-road race here in the States.
That's right. He runs his Ford trucks in the off-roading and goes out to the desert and races 200, 400, 500 miles, and such a punishing event. And that's a real challenging type of racing because if the car sometimes or the truck breaks, sometimes the driver's out there trying to fix it himself out in the desert.
Standing out in the middle of the desert, battling off rattlesnakes and spiders and heat and dust and mud and dirt. Not, to me, not the glamorous side of motor racing.
It's not like Surfer's Paradise in Australia, that's for sure.
Hiro Matsushita, number 25, who's switched teams this year, but is out with a cut left rear tire. May have run over some debris. So I wonder if that's a Firestone tire that you point out there, Scott. Very good point. He may have run over some debris, which could cause problems for some other drivers, or could it be the Firestone tires are wearing?
Well, the Firestone tires...
Trouble with the right front. Oh, he seems to have got it solved there, but with the right front.
Oh, it looks like he probably got hit from the rear.
Yeah, so both of my theories are out the window. No debris and no tires aren't wearing down. He just got tagged from behind.
That usually happens. The front wings on these cars have a side fence on them that are very thin, very sharp, and if it just touches the rear tire of the car in front, it can just slice the tire just like butter.
And that was Robbie Gordon that tagged him, so it may have caused some damage to the wing on Gordon's car, which could put him further.
As we ride with Paul Tracy in the Newman Haas Lola, you will have noticed throughout this afternoon's race at Surfers Paradise just what a fantastic race setup both Andretti and Tracy have had. Every time we've had the onboard pictures from Andretti's car, we've been able to see just what a perfect setup he's achieved over this weekend. The car looks absolutely rock steady. except when Michael gets it a little bit wrong, and Tracy as well. So we have now in first and second places the Newman Haas Lola team. Michael Andretti leading from Paul Tracy. And not a good day for Reynard as we look down on Surfers Paradise here in Queensland from the helicopter. That's Andretti down there with a tremendous lead, with about now, I would say, just under 20 laps to go. But not a good day for Reynard. They will not be enjoying this in Bicester. I should think they wish they hadn't got up to watch it, in fact, because it's Lola, Lola, Penske, Lola, Lola, Lola. That's the top six. Andretti, Tracy, Stefan Johansson in the last year's Penske Mercedes, then Bobby Rahal in the Lola Mercedes. Scott Pruitt is fifth, 14 laps to go. Scott Pruitt is fifth in the Lola Ford, and Raul Boesel, of whom we have seen hardly anything this afternoon, has hauled himself up into the top six in his Lola Mercedes. So it looks like it's going to be Michael Andretti's 30th IndyCar victory. There's still plenty to go, though, of course, as Michael continues to hurl it over these curbs. He's not letting up, but then, of course, he has got Paul Tracy behind him. He'll know this just as well as we do. There are back markers to contend with, and Paul Tracy may well be his teammate, but we can be absolutely assured that there will be no love lost between these two, and if Tracy thought he could win this one, he would certainly do that, as Andretti patiently waits for the right moment to get through the back markers. This is the stage of the race when he could well make a tiny mistake. He'll be a little bit tired. There's plenty of rubber and oil on the circuit, and it's just this sort of situation that could catch out Michael Andretti. Yes, well, he's not very happy about the back markers. Plenty of fist waving, hand waving. Not very cooperative, this, I must say. After all, this is the race leader, and how many times have we seen this in motor racing? The race leader coming up behind a back marker. Okay, Michael, you can wave as much as you like, but the guy obviously hasn't seen you. Maybe the mirrors have fallen off, or maybe he's choosing not to look. But anyway, this guy has not seen that race leader Michael Andretti is up his chuff. And Michael is trying everything to, if he had headlights, he'd be flashing them. But waving will have to do for the time being. It's probably, I think it could be Zampedri. Zampedri or Baccarat, it looks like. But Michael Andretti is not happy about this. We thought a few laps ago, in fact, that he had a problem. I don't think there is any problem with the Newman Haas Lola, except at the moment not being able to get through the back markers. We thought a couple of laps ago he may have had a slight problem. He slowed down a bit, but he's decided to back off for the time being and not get overexcited about this. He's got a reasonably healthy lead, and he's waving. Well, I don't know what he's going to do. They really ought to show a flag to this back marker, because this just will not do. We need some good British marshalling at this point to let this man know that the race leader is bearing down on him. And this, of course, is allowing Paul Tracy to catch up. This is not a good situation for Michael Andretti, although he ought to have been able to get through by now. It's not easy to overtake at Surfers Paradise, but when you're up behind the back marker, it should be a piece of cake. And Andretti's not going to take any risks for this. It's obvious the guy in front has not seen him. And if the guy in front hasn't seen you, then you've got to be very careful how you pass. Whoa. Michael tempted to give him a nudge there, I think. Tempted just to give him an angry nudge, but that has allowed Paul Tracy to catch up tremendously, and that will have really got Michael's blood up, because that was not acceptable race driving, certainly at this level, well, or at any level really. And look how close Paul Tracy's got, but of course he's going to have the same problem with the back markers, or will he? It looks as though he could get through cleanly here. He does. Paul Tracy is through, and he's now very close to Michael Andretti. The Newman Haas pair, Andretti and Tracy, first and second, with about 15 laps to go here at Surfers Paradise. And Tracy looks in pretty good shape, and he'll show no mercy at all on Andretti in the other Newman Haas car. In third place, it's still Stefan Johansson. Great weekend for Stefan. A lot of people will be very happy to see him on the podium at the end of this race. in last year's Penske Mercedes. Bobby Rahal up in 4th place. Then it's Scott Pruitt on the Firestone tyres. Not such a good race as Miami, as we're back now with Paul Tracy. Cleanly through the back marker, something Andretti... Oh, and don't tell me that it is. It's Stefan Johansson. His race is over. Unbelievable. Can't see what the problem is at the moment. It looks like transmission because he appears to have no drive to the rear wheels whatsoever. Well, we've seen a lot of transmission troubles today. Villeneuve, Christian Fittipaldi, Theo Fabi and Jimmy Vasser all out of the race, all in Reynards. And we now have a major problem for Stefan Johansson. What a shame. It moves Bobby Rahal up into the top 3 as we rejoin Guy Hobbs and Scott Goodyear.
Johansson, so this is going to be a dynamic finish if they can clean these cars off the track. Now
De
Gilles de
Ferran has now hit the wall.
Yeah.
So there's going to be, Kart's going to have their work cut out for them now. They've got 3 cars to pull off course, and that's a shame. No points at Miami for Gilles de Ferran, and now no points here in Australia. It makes for a long, long trip back home to America.
I think there's a good chance we may see, though, Gilles de Ferran win a race before this season is over. He's got a very strong car. He's proven to be great. And now we're on board with Paul Tracy as he trails teammate Michael Andretti. And at this point, I'm just hoping they can get these cars cleared up so we can have a great race to the end.
It'll be a great race to the end, without a doubt. And looks like we're going to have a replay here. Maybe this is of De Ferran coming out. Yeah, he just comes out and he runs over the back of a car in front of him, which looks like it might have been Eddie Cheever, and clips off that
Here's Cheever.
Right front corner. Here we go here. Yeah.
Cheever obviously lost a little power coming out of the turn because Bosell was able to pull well away from him. Ferran tried to duck down the inside and make the move. Didn't make a tight enough turn.
I think what Cheever was trying to do, knowing that he was maybe being lapped or whatever was going on there, it looked like he left enough space to the right-hand side of the track for him to go around the outside, and he was trying to sneak on the inside and just, you know, being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Now, do you suppose after this race there's going to be some meetings, there's complaints? I suppose Michael's going to go and have a few words with Matsushita, or at least file some kind of complaint, because I hate to pick on Hiro Matsushita, but it's something we saw all last year and the year before. The guy's got a lot of money, he's able to go racing, but his reputation for looking in his mirrors is amongst drivers, I would assume yourself too, not good.
Well, it's unfortunate. I mean, he's a very, very nice guy, but I think in this opportunity, when you know that you're lapped or you're 1 or 2 laps down, and we've all had that if we've had mechanical problems, you don't want to affect the outcome of the race. If you can just breathe the gas going down the straightaway and let the people go by that really have an opportunity to win the event. And with this situation now, the pack is packing up. You've got Michael Andretti in the lead, Paul Tracy second, Bobby Rahal third, and it looks like Scott Pruitt in 4th, and Gujamin in 5th, and you're going to have
Danny Sullivan, I believe.
Danny Sullivan sitting up there too. It looks like Pac West is in for a good day also. Here's a situation where you've got the 3rd car in the field right now is Matsushita. Bobby Rahal, the master, sitting back there in 3rd, going to collect some great points as we've discussed all day long. He needs to get past Matsushita to be able to have a run at both Michael Andretti, the leader, and Paul Tracy, who's now in 2nd. And the key thing here is for Michael and Paul, both very competitive drivers, very aggressive drivers, are going to be trying to get the lead. Michael trying to keep the lead, Paul trying to take the lead over from his teammate on the restart.
We see Theo Fabi is back out there under power too after getting out of the car and looked like he was going to call it quits for the day, but now we see his car is back out there. Also, by my calculations, Alonso Jr. has managed to work his way up to 7th, including the 2 stop-and-go penalties and going to the back of the pack and working his way through the field. But by the elimination of such people as Gilles de Ferran, Stefan Johansson, Fabi, Villeneuve, Unser just staying out there all day and plugging away, is going to come away with some points from round 2 in Australia. Just to remind everybody, while you're enjoying this round 3 of the Indy series coming up in Phoenix, our first 1 mile oval, first oval of the year. That race is April 2nd, due for a 4 p.m. telecast. Make sure you join us from there. Great racing, as Scott pointed out earlier, the Bull Ring, a great circuit. We've seen some wonderful races there, and generally gorgeous weather in the middle of April, about 80 degrees, sunshine, wind blowing. It's a great place to visit, nice town.
Well, thanks to Hiro Matsushita, we now have an incredible racing prospect for the last few laps here at Surfers Paradise. As you watch live on Eurosport, a very intriguing battle between Newman Haas teammates Michael Andretti and Paul Tracy. What happened was that Hiro Matsushita held Michael Andretti up for nearly 2 full laps. That allowed Paul Tracy to catch him, and just as we expected, there is now going to be a ding-dong battle between Paul Tracy and Michael Andretti, and there'll be no quarter given, absolutely no quarter given. Michael Andretti has led all afternoon. He wants this one very badly. He needs it after losing out in Miami, and of course Matsushita will be, to say the very least, an unpopular man in the paddock after this race. There we see the people out. Fernandez, Fittipaldi, Vassar, Baccarat, Villeneuve. Also out is Gilles de Ferran after running into the back of Eddie Cheever. It looked as though Eddie Cheever was very, very slow indeed out of that left-hand corner. It's an uphill corner. It goes uphill after the corner. He either missed a gear or was just very slow out. Anyway, Gilles de Ferran made contact with the back of Eddie Cheever's car, and he's out of the race, as is Stefan Johansson. We think with transmission trouble. So, a very bad day indeed for Reynard in Australia, but a good day for Lola, and an especially good day for Newman Haas. Less than 10 laps to go as we ride with Bobby Rahal, and Bobby Rahal is going to pick up some very useful points this afternoon towards his championship. He was third in Miami 2 weeks ago, and he runs third now behind these two men who are behind the pace car at the moment on a yellow under yellow flags, of course, Michael Andretti and Paul Tracy. So the field bunched up nicely for a fight to the finish, and this yellow flag period caused by bringing in the cars of Gilles de Ferran and Stefan Johansson. There, the third car in the picture, blue and yellow car there, is Hiro Matsushita, and he's ahead of Bobby Rahal. So there is a joker, not a very funny joke, but a joker in the pack as the pace car peels off, and Tracy's right with Andretti. This could be a tremendous dice, this. Now, whoops, they're both safely through that chicane, but Tracy wants that win, he really does. As we return now to Guy Hobson, Scott Goodyear for a few fantastic laps to the finish.
I'm surprised. It looked like Tracy was going to be able to pull that move off after drafting so well down that straightaway. It looks like he was going to be able to get the slingshot, but no. Michael's car obviously very strong. His tyres obviously working well for him. He is able to continue to lead this race in front of teammate Paul Tracy, looking for some points. Both these guys looking to score actual finishing points. Michael Andretti, as we pointed out, 2 points as Tracy takes a look down the inside. Is he going to be able to do it?
Well, they're almost going to rub wheels here. They're going to go into this left-right, and Paul gets it. He's gone through on the inside.
Nice move, under braking, putting Paul Tracy to the point, leading this race. There's Bobby Rahal in third. Now, Michael Andretti, of course, is not going to let that go unanswered. He's certainly going to fight back and try and pick off his second IndyCar win here in Australia, being the first guy to win 2 here.
And we saw that happen because when Michael Andretti was coming out of the turn, the car went just a little bit sideways. It looked like he couldn't get the power down. Paul was able to run up on the inside of him going down the long straight.
Michael Andretti keeping teammate Paul Tracy in his sights. As I mentioned before, I don't believe there's any team orders amongst these guys. Both running for the Newman Haas team. They're both really considered #1 driver, and it's up to them. Obviously, the team orders would come into effect when they start bashing each other, and they say, no, don't do that. But at this point, it's in your own race. Tracy's able to pull out quite a big gap on Michael. Will Rahal, in fact, be able to get by Michael for the second place finish?
Well, we're talking about teammates here also. I can almost guarantee you that if the season keeps on going like this, where they're 1-2 all the time, that maybe the transfer of information won't be as generous as it is now.
Yeah, you'll start seeing that communication link get smaller and smaller and smaller. So, Michael, what did you do? Oh, nothing. No, I'm running the really hard springs. There's Farby running again as the rest of the field, including Alonso Jr., is able to get by him. Jr., as we mentioned, worked his way up to 7th. There, Bobby Rahal, who is currently running in 3rd in that Lola Mercedes. Right behind him is Scott Pruitt. Behind Pruitt, Gugelman and teammate Danny Sullivan, who looked like they were going to have a really long weekend, but have managed to work their way up into that 5th and 6th position. As we ride on board now with Bobby Rahal chasing down Michael Andretti. If Rahal should finish 3rd, you're right, he will lead here, the leader in the series as we head to round 3 in Phoenix.
You know, it's interesting, we talked about before that Michael not getting out of the corners as quickly as one might think he should when he was trying to chase down Hiro Matsushita. In this situation, we saw the same thing when he was turning around trying to chase down Paul Tracy.
Alonso Jr. getting into a little problem there as he goes through the chicane. Fabi went to go around him, but obviously Al's not going to let him go by. He corrected it and came out ahead of Fabi. And Fabi, at this point, not running for a position there. He's sat a few laps out after pulling into pit lane, got out of the car, but is now back out running. Alonso Jr. seems to be having his troubles all day, but will pick up some points today. Rahal now very close to Michael Andretti.
See, here's where Michael's not getting out of the turns as quickly as we thought that he should. And that's where Paul Tracy really pulled away from him going down the front straight.
Do you suppose maybe Michael's missing a lower gear?
Well, possibly could be the situation because, as we talked about before, you wouldn't think that Hiro Matsushita could pull him out of the turns like that.
Rahal battling for that second place finish after Michael Andretti has dominated here all day. Started from the pole, led the most laps, but now as the race has gone on, the car is beginning to fade underneath him, and it looks like he's losing some of his speed. As Scott pointed out, not quick out of the corners. And with about 3 laps remaining, I think we're going to see Rahal make a move for that second place position. Tracy out front by about 10 car lengths right now.
And if Bobby tries to make a move, I suspect it will probably be coming out of the last turn, going down the front straight. Great place to pass, great place to get a draft going into the turn 1 area. Michael's slow coming onto the front straight.
And as before, at the same time Rahal tries to make a move for position, he's got to watching his mirrors very closely, because right behind him, Scott Pruitt, who's had a great run today.
Deja vu of Miami. Bobby in third, Scott Pruitt in fourth after a restart.
Coming through the chicane. There you see how high they ride up on that curving. Back on board once again with Bobby Rahal.
This is a great view from this camera here, because it's almost like you're driving in the car. You're driving with the driver right now, going through all the turns. Look how close you're coming to the wall.
And there you see all those tire marks on the outside the wall. You see where people have made contact with the wall over the weekend through the qualifying and practice sessions. Of course, other races ran here too this weekend. The Australian touring car, they had some go-karts, and I believe they had a Formula Ford race here in Australia this weekend. Many events lined up to keep this huge crowd in Australia that are still in their seats looking, or actually at this point standing up in their seats for this dramatic finish to round 2 of the 1995 season.
It would have been interesting to see if Michael could have kept Paul behind him if he didn't have that problem coming out of the turn, because it seems like Michael's being able to run in a lapse time just as fast as everybody else, but you know, a little quicker in some spots than Bobby and a little slower in some others, but all seems to come out equal.
And we talked about this track being the place where first, well, Paul Tracy switches from Penske's first, or actually, I guess you could put it as a first, but his first win for the Lola Newman Haas team will come here in Australia.
And it's really going to start to shape up to be a Reynard versus Lola championship if this is going to keep up.
Yeah, at this point we have, of course, Lola's in the top 4.
That's right.
And then our first Reynard, Mauricio Guzman, who is currently listed in 5th position, right behind him, teammate Danny Sullivan.
As we go into the last few miles of the race here at Surfers Paradise, the big question is, does Michael Andretti have a problem? It would appear that he does, but it would appear to be an intermittent problem. Paul Tracy got him in a good, clean, aggressive move under braking into that tight left-hander. It almost appeared that Michael said, well, I can't hang on to you, you've got to go. But he's holding off Bobby Rahal, however, is Michael Andretti at the moment for second place. But this is our leader, Paul Tracy, in the Newman Haas Lola. A much better weekend for them in Australia than it was in Miami. Well, it couldn't have got much worse than it was there. And just the last few miles to go now for Paul Tracy. This win will do a lot for his confidence. He was pretty down after Miami. He had 4 shunts there, 3 in practice and 1 in the race. So this will really boost young Paul Tracy's confidence. People used to talk about him as a Formula 1 star, not so much these days, although he has tried the Benetton. We'll see, though, how he goes through this season. But right now, he leads this street fight in Surfers Paradise from his teammate, Michael Andretti, who we think has got a problem, although it seems to come and go. Third is Bobby Rahal, so we've got Lolas in the top 3. Then it's Scott Pruitt in another Lola this time, and look in the background there, Rahal is right with Michael Andretti. It looks as though Paul Tracy is home free, but the battle to the end here is going to be between Bobby Rahal and Michael Andretti. They'll be in the picture any second now. There they are. Rahal doesn't seem to be able to do anything about Andretti with 4 laps to go. So we really don't know what the problem was earlier on. Okay, Matsushita held Andretti up very badly indeed, but really he should have been able to pass him. Andretti in a Newman-Haas Lola versus Matsushita should have been much easier than that, even despite the weaving and the balking. But Bobby Rahal in the Lola Merc at the moment can do nothing about the man who led for almost every lap of the afternoon, Michael Andretti. And there they are with Scott Pruitt behind them. And then behind them come Gugelmin and Sullivan in the Reynards. So highest place Reynard, 5th for Maurizio Gugelmin, then Danny Sullivan. And look at Rahal now, he's looking for a way past. Michael doesn't want this. He's moving left, moving right. Rahal could get in under braking at the end of this. I don't think he's close enough. In fact, he's not close enough. He knows he's not close enough. And of course, Bobby Rahal wants these points. If he stays where he is, he's going to lead the championship at the end of the day. So Bobby Rahal's not going to take any silly risks here in trying to pass Michael Andretti. Yes, it'd be good to get second place. Yes, he'd like more points. But he sure isn't going to throw the race away for that, because third will do just nicely at surface for him. He'll lead the championship as they go on to Phoenix in 3 weeks' time for the first of the ovals. But look how he closes on Michael Andretti under braking. I think Andretti must have an intermittent gearbox problem of some kind, but for the last 2 laps we go back to Guy Hobson, Scott Goodyear.
Here in Australia with just under 4 laps to go right now, Michael Andretti doing everything he can to fend off, and here we ride on board with our leader, Paul Tracy.
This will be a win for Lola by the looks of it, obviously, with Lola's in the first 4 positions. And obviously there was only 1 win by Lola last year, and last year was also the first year that Newman-Haas did not win a race since the first time ever since entering IndyCar racing in 1983.
Newman-Haas, one of the most dominant teams in the series. I said we're riding on board with Paul Tracy. Of course, we're riding on board with Michael Andretti, looking back at that battle to Bobby Rahal. 231 career starts for the Newman-Haas team, and numerous wins for them. Mario Andretti has won the championship individually. Michael has won the championship individually for them. And now, of course, looking for another championship for that Newman-Haas team. Newman-Haas, really Carl Haas, every series he's run. In Can-Am in the old days, he won that championship. Formula 5000 with Brian Redman, he won that championship. Very good team that Newman, now Paul Newman being a member of that team, but Carl Haas able to put together some great teams.
And not only is it a win from a team standpoint, but as a manufacturer, as we mentioned before, Carl Haas being the importer of Lola cars here in North America.
And if Carl Haas is not at an IndyCar race, you can bet he's at some track in North America somewhere where they may be running a Formula Ford Festival or any other vintage racing. He's out there and he's selling his Lola chassis, being the sole importer and distributor for Lola in North America. Bobby Rahal getting very close to Michael Andretti. Just 2 laps remaining. It's going to be tough because Michael Andretti is certainly not an easy guy to pass either.
No, will make it things very difficult if you're trying to get past him or even get beside him. Coming back to Carl Haas, the latest place that he starts to hang his hat on race weekends these days is the Winston Cup races with John Andretti, and cousin to Michael. Now that the new Cronofis Haas team is out there, Carl Haas being a part owner with Michael Cronofis, in the sense that John Andretti is going Winston Cup racing, so something new for all that group.
And John Andretti's actually done very well in that Winston Cup racing. He ran very well at the Daytona 500. His last race he finished, or was running as high as 7th, finished 13th. John Andretti, a new learning curve for him on the Winston Cup circuit, and the whole team, in fact, but they're looking very strong, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them win a Winston Cup race before the season is over. As right now, Rahal tries to pick up 2nd position from Michael Andretti with just over a lap remaining here at Australia, round 2. They've had the white flag. Paul Tracy's clearly out in front and will pick up the win, but this is the battle right now for 2nd position. Ooh, and Michael getting way up on the curb in there.
Very aggressive over the curbs right now, but you've only got a couple of laps left to go in these situations. This being the final lap, you know, he can take his gamble and go ahead and do that. Obviously trying to get through the turns as quickly as possible, so he's not going to allow Bobby Rahal an opportunity to maybe poke his nose here. anywhere on this final lap. We talked before about Michael coming out of the turns a little slower than what we thought that he maybe should do, but we saw him merge onto the long front straightaway that last time when we saw that helicopter shot, and just no problem in leaving Bobby Rahal going onto the front straight. So something very strange there. Getting very close to the wall on the exit of the turn, using up every inch of the racetrack, doing just a great job going down the back straight here, 165, 70 miles an hour into this new chicane. You see just throwing the car around, and clipped the wall.
And he's taken off his right rear.
Taken off his right rear.
Oh, wow, Michael Andretti, that is just an absolute disaster for him. He led this race, he started from the pole. Paul Tracy finally got by him after the restart on the yellow, and then being, as you said, very aggressive and defending his second place finish here. Got a little wild in that chicane, the car got thrown off, and he just clipped those tires. Paul Tracy takes the win here at Australia.
And a nice job by Paul. Representing the Nations Cup, giving Canada 20 more points, with the 20 points that went along with Jacques Villeneuve for winning Miami. Canada now leads the Nations Cup.
You could not ask for more drama than that, and in the politest possible language, Michael Andretti really is an all-or-nothing driver, isn't he? He's still in the car. He can't believe it. He just cannot believe it. He led for most of the afternoon, only to be passed by his teammate Paul Tracy, and he is very, very shaken by that. He just can't believe it. This is how he got it wrong. Jumping the curbs, he's been doing that all afternoon, but the car finally got away from him on the last lap, thumped the tyre barrier hard. It's very quick there on the right-hand side, slid to the left, back over to the right, and finally into the wall with most of the right. And now we see it from the onboard camera, and at that speed, well, he had no hope of getting out of that one. And Andretti, again, well, the race is absolutely thrown away. It was looking like a 1-2 for Newman Haas. We don't know if Michael had a problem with that car. We really have no idea. He let Paul Tracy through. Well, he didn't let him through, but Tracy took him, and Andretti could not fight back. And he's still completely dazed, and he just can't believe what's happened. I don't think there'll be any damage to Michael there. I wouldn't have thought he would have been hurt in that. It's a very, very quick there. He hit the wall hard, but looking at the car, there doesn't seem to be any damage to the actual tub. Certainly it's, no, I think Michael, yeah, he's fine, but he cannot believe this. That is 2 weekends running when it looked as though he was safely and surely on the top step of the rostrum, only to come away with no points at all. And it looked like Bobby Rahal stopping there to speak to Michael as Paul Tracy cruises round the winner here at Surfers Paradise in the Newman Haas Lola Ford, engineered by Brian Lyles, and second Bobby Rahal in the Lola Mercedes in that dramatic last lap where Michael Andretti went into the wall with about half a lap to go. Third then was Scott Pruitt in the Lola Ford, a tremendous day for Lola, and fourth Maurizio Gugelmin, and fifth Danny Sullivan. So that puts Bobby Rahal into the lead of the IndyCar Championship with 2 races gone, and the next one in 3 weeks' time on the 1 mile oval at Felix. So this is the view again from Andretti's Lola, and he really has made a right old mess of the right hands, and he's got to lift back with Bobby Rahal. Well, that's a nice so that's a good shot to end on. Bobby Rahal giving a very shaken and disappointed and upset and angry Michael Andretti a lift back to pit lane. He just can't believe he didn't win that race, and he can't believe he didn't win in Miami, but that is how it finished. Tracy from Rahal from Scott Pruitt in the fast-owned Shod Lola. And don't forget, of course, we'll be back with you live from Phoenix for the third round, and before then, of course, there'll be live coverage of Formula One racing here on Eurosport from Brazil, the Brazilian Grand Prix, on Friday, Saturday and Sunday. That's it from me, Rob Widows. Goodbye, and thank you for joining us here on Eurosport.